We're in the province of Alberta and the 5th largest city in Canada as Edmonton, gateway to the north, plays host to the Champ Car World Series. A championship within a championship, the chase for a unique stone trophy honouring the team that captures Champ Car's Canadian Triple Crown. The first leg of the series was in Quebec. Rainy conditions turned Mont-Tremblant into a struggle against the elements. Robert Dominguez emerged as the race winner. Team Australia took the lead in the Triple Crown. A week later in Toronto, weather again was the wild card. A race filled with dramatic action was captured by Will Power. His victory enabled Team Australia to widen its lead in the Triple Crown. Today at Edmonton, they'll be looking to lock up this inaugural team championship. Edmonton has a rich history in motor racing. Another chapter will be written this afternoon as the Rexall Grand Prix serves as a third and decisive encounter in a Canadian Triple Crown. Welcome to Rexall Speedway at City Centre Airport. Special welcome to our viewers in Canada on Global. My name is Jeremy Shaw. Alongside me, as usual, is Atlantic Series front runner, Canada's very own James Hinchcliffe. James, it looks as though Team Australia has a handy margin going into this decisive race in a Canadian Triple Crown, but it's certainly far from locked up.
You're certainly right, Jeremy. With Newman Haas Lanigan Racing having both drivers qualifying in the top 5, they can definitely move ahead, and our sports is up there as well.
Yes, it's certainly a lot to play for this afternoon. Just big honour on up for grabs for this afternoon. Team Australia certainly very well placed to take that honour. We'll have to see though. It's going to be a long race this afternoon. It'll be 1 hour and 45 minutes. So we're almost ready for the start, and we've had huge crowds here all weekend long. Perfect weather conditions as well, and I think we're in for a very exciting afternoon of motor racing. Sebastian Bourdais, one of our 3 championship contenders that came into this weekend, with Robert Dominguez leading by a couple of points over Will Power. And Sebastian Bourdais, well, he's won 3 races this year, but he's also had 3 DNFs, did not finishes. So as a result of that, currently he's 3rd in the point standings, and that is unfamiliar territory for the Frenchman. We hear word that he might have already signed a deal to race in Formula 1 next year with Scuderia Toro Rosso, but no doubt about it, he is concentrating on his aim of winning a 4th straight, perhaps, Champ Car World Series title. That is certainly his goal going into this weekend. Let's have a look at the championship points. As we arrived here, as we said, there was a 2-point margin from 1st to 2nd. It's actually tightened up a little bit since then, because on Friday, Sebastian Bourdais gained 1 point for setting the provisional pole time, and then yesterday it was Will Power who grabbed the overall pole position. He will start from the inside of the front row. Sebastian Bourdais was only 4th quickest in the 2nd session of qualifying, but as a result of being fastest on Friday, he will start on the front row of the grid. So everything to play for this afternoon, and it's just a tremendous place to go racing. A lot of racing history here in this town, and a lot more to be played out this afternoon. Just a big crowd of people on hand. There have been all weekend. There were 46,000 here on Friday, over 60,000 yesterday, and I think it's all bar a sellout this afternoon for the race. It's the 3rd time we've raced in Edmonton, and just a lot of excitement all the way around, James.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic venue. Like you said, Jeremy, it's only in its 3rd year, and what they've been able to do with this event and for such a young race has just been spectacular. The crowds are phenomenal. Not only are they big in numbers, but certainly big in enthusiasm. There's a huge passion with the Canadian fans here in Edmonton.
There is indeed, and there's one of the flyovers taking place now. Lots of pre-race activities here, and there is the racing great Mario Andretti. He's on hand this weekend. He gives the command to start the engines, and just wonderful to see someone like Mario here.
It's such an honor to have him here. He's obviously one of the legends of motor racing. He's raced it all and he's won it all. So it's fantastic that he's here as the Grand Marshal of this event, and he's been taking part in all sorts of activities throughout the weekend. That's
right. He was driving a Minardi 2-seater. This morning he took Paul Newman out for a ride in that car. I know that was a real thrill for both of those two guys. Let's have a look at the starting lineup this afternoon. Will Power, his 4th pole of his career career, his third this year. Sebastian Bourdais will start alongside on the outside of the front row of the grid. Justin Wilson, he won here last year, probably should have won here a couple of years ago as well until he crashed. Graham Rahal will start from row 2.
Third row, impressive run for both Neil Johnny and Bruno Junqueira in the Sunny Barbecue car. And on the fourth row, we have Simon Pagenaud, not able to match his teammate, and Ryan Dial in the first top 10 qualifying effort for Pacific Coast Motorsports.
Alex Tagliani, 9th fastest in qualifying, the second of the R-Sport cars, alongside Dan Clark, who is ahead of his Minardi Team USA teammate Robert Dornbos, who had a problem yesterday in qualifying, but he was quickest in the warm-up. Jan Halen, another good effort in qualifying too.
Row 7 is all Forsyth Championship Racing Oil Serbia, just edging out teammate Paul Tracy. And down to the 8th row, Catherine Legg. A few accidents this weekend, and Alex Figge struggling to get to grips with this circuit.
And alone at the back of the grid, there's a car number 22. Yeah, it should be driven by Tristan Gomondi, but he's been nursing various injuries actually over the last few weeks. He had a big crash here on Friday morning, and as a result of that, there was some injury to his lower back. He was advised yesterday afternoon, right before the start of final qualifying, that he was not to take part in this race. And so later in the evening, Mario Dominguez was fitted into that car. Mario, of course, started off the season with the Forsyth Championship Racing Team, and now he has his opportunity to drive for the PKV Racing Team. Let's have a look at what happened to Tristan Gomondi on Friday morning. He's had all sorts of incidents. Of course, he qualified on the pole at Mont Tremblant a few weeks ago, wasn't able to take up his starting position there. This is what happened to him on Friday morning, and a heavy impact there. And then on Saturday, right before the final qualifying session, Dr. Chris Pindersky advised the team that it really was not a good idea for Tristan to take the wheel of that car. So here is this morning, Mario Dominguez. He had a seat fitting last night, and he's strapped into the car this morning. The first time, of course, he's driven this car, but he has started off the season with the Forsyth Championship Racing Team. And Mario drove the first 3 races of the season, had the best finish of 6th. That was in Houston, but after that he lost his ride to Oriol Servia. And I know Mario Dominguez is certainly excited to get back behind the wheel of a champ car, James.
He certainly is, but it's going to be very difficult for him without too much experience this weekend. So we're going to take a look at the track here in Edmonton. It is an airport circuit, not unlike Cleveland, but it's much faster and a very, very high speed, high grip, easily the most physical track that we race on, Jeremy. So heading down to the first corner, third gear, very quick, down from 170 miles an hour, down to the quick turns 2, 3, 4 section, all very physical, consecutive corners. That's why it makes it so tiring. Through turn 7, slowest part of the track. Turn 9, very quick corner, very bumpy, and then through 11 and 12, important to get an incredibly good run out of 12, because that last little chicane there, Jeremy, is flat out at over 135 miles an hour in these cars. Incredible stuff.
And a couple of big bumps in the middle of that corner as well.
You will certainly see that from some of our onboards, and even from the outboard, the circuit cameras. You'll see how bumpy this track is in certain sections, and it happens to be the fastest sections of the racetrack. So it's not easy on the drivers. Part of the reason why it was a good idea for Tristan to sit out with his back problems.
Yeah, so it's a very physically demanding track, and difficult for the teams as well to set up the cars. It has some similarities to the airfield course in Cleveland, and coincidentally Graham Rahal has qualified 4th here. He matched his previous best qualifying in a champ car that was at Cleveland, also 4th on the grid. I know he's looking for a strong run this afternoon. We'll see all 17 cars lining up for the standing start. And this is certainly an exciting innovation to the Champ Car World Series, brought in 3 or 4 races ago at Portland for the very first time. In that first event, there were no stalls at all, an absolutely picture-perfect start. But lately, we've had a couple of people stalling on the grid. Hopefully, that will not be the case this afternoon. The drivers, once they're all lined up, they will get the 15-second board to go. The lights will light up in sequence. When they go out, we will be racing. Tremendous getaway by Sebastian Bourdais. Perhaps he had an advantage there. He was on the outside line of that front row, which was really on the racing line going into turn 1. So all the rubber laid down on that part of the racetrack gave him perhaps an advantage, and he took full advantage of it.
And he did a brilliant job. Like you say, the outside is a traditional racing line, a bit cleaner. And when you're trying to get 750 horsepower out of these Cosworth XFE engines down to the ground, it's better to have a bit of a cleaner racetrack. He also had a wider, better line into turn 1, was able to overtake Will Power, and a great job for Miljani in the PKV car to jump up to third from fifth on the grid.
Yeah, that was a good start by him in the Red Bull car, certainly so. A good bit of shuffling going on in the order there. Sebastian Bourdais was very frustrated after final qualifying yesterday. He felt he was blocked by a variety of drivers, who particularly blamed Paul Tracy for holding up Bruno Junqueira, who then held up himself. But no penalties were assessed by the stewards. There is Justin Wilson making a move down to the inside in turn one.
Fighting back, textbook stuff from Justin Wilson. He booked that one no problem. Was able to get a good run off turn 12, like I was saying in the track map. Drafted Miljani all the way down that front straight and pulled the move into the first corner. Brilliant move from Justin to move up this early.
Justin Wilson, he really loves this racetrack. A couple of years ago, he should have won here driving for the Rousport team. He led most of the, well, he didn't actually lead most races. His teammate AJ Allmendinger led most of the race. AJ then crashed. Justin was then left in the lead of the race, and under caution in the late stages, Justin made a mistake and spun. He threw it away. But he came back here 1 year ago and set the record straight. A great victory there. Now he runs third place in the early stages.
And he'll be trying to track down now the Team Australia car of Will Power running second. This is the battle for fourth. Graham Rahal, of course, started fourth. Lost that position to Johnny on the start, but like Justin, he's going to be trying to get that position back. Graham's been running very competitive all weekend here, Jeremy. He was actually third in the final qualifying session, but due to Sebastian Bourdais' Friday pole, that gave him the second starting spot. And we see Graham now at the top of your screen, very close, taking a look, not quite close enough this time.
No, you have to. There's also Bruno Junqueira there getting very, very sideways as he tries to take a place from Ryan DeYell for Pacific Coast Motorsports. Ryan had a brilliant qualifying run, got himself in the 8th position on the grid. He's moved up a couple of places at the start, and as you can see there, just holding that position into turn one, Ryan DeYell, the Scotsman, excellent start to the race.
It's a shame we didn't get to see his start, because he managed to jump past both these two men we're watching. Bruno Junqueira in front, Simone Pagenaud, Team Australia car just behind him. So a stonking start from Ryan DeYell, who's coming off one of his best races in Toronto last week.
Yeah, wasn't it a super run 2 weeks ago in Toronto? He led the race for a while. Perhaps it was a result of strategy, but good strategy. He changed to wet weather tyres at the right time, and Ryan DeYell also running strongly well here in the early stages. There is the battle now for 7th and 8th place, Bruno Junqueira and Simon Pagenaud. Let's have a look, a replay at the start, and watch on the right side of the screen. Sebastian Bourdais just makes a great getaway from the outside of the front row.
Ryan DeYell splits the two cars of Pagenaud and Bruno Junqueira. They all funnel through again. Great start from Miljani, really capitalized on a good launch there.
So it was certainly a picture-perfect start there by Sebastian Bourdais on the right of the screen. Will Power didn't get too much wheel spin, just I think was perhaps a little bit conservative away from the line. Wanted to make sure he didn't stall the line. There was Miljani slotting into third. Bill Stevens is with Derek Walker. Back to that interview in a moment if we can. Still, there is Sebastian Bourdais. He's in the lead of the race, and as I said, he was very frustrated after qualifying, but in the previous sessions it looked like he had perhaps an advantage of a 10th or 2 of a second.
Down here at Derek Walker, Team Australia, on the start, Derek, was there something that Will might have been able to do to keep Sebastian from going around him?
Well, unfortunately we're worried about that. There's a lot of paint on our side of the track, so we got on the paint, got a little bit more wheel spin than we wanted, and that gave Sebastian the advantage. So, hey, it's a long race, though. That was the reason.
And Jan, that was one of the things we have talked about when they paint the starting line in the grid. It's a concern for the drivers.
So you heard it from Derek Walker there. Will Power frustrated at the start, James.
Well, Sebastian had actually alluded to that earlier in the weekend when he got pole on Friday. That the inside was actually a bit of a hindrance with a giant 2, the number 2, painted on the runway there. And of course, paint not giving you a lot of grip. But we're going to take a replay really quick of Ryan DeYell tragically losing it in the first corner, apparently all on his own while running 6. That's got to be heartbreaking for Ryan, who was doing such a good job in the early part of this race.
Yeah, that was certainly a shame for Ryan DeYell. It was a tremendous qualifying effort by the young Scotsman. A revelation last week in Toronto. He held the lead pretty convincingly for quite a long time, then was passed by Will Power, and then later on in the very closing stages by Justin Wilson as well. In fact, a little bit of contact between those two, and Ryan DeYell had a run into the tyres, and he fell back to 7th place at the finish. The early stages, here we are. Here is Sebastian Bourdais. The gap from 1st to 2nd, and it seems to be shrinking, James.
It seems to be, indeed. I think that maybe Will was a little bit flustered losing the lead off the start there, but now he's gotten comfortable, gotten into a rhythm, and he's going to start tracking down Sebastian Bourdais. So we're going to be keeping a close watch on that gap, because it would be great to see these two dicing it out on track.
It certainly is. So we've got 5 laps now in the books, and Sebastian Bourdais leads by just a little bit under a second from the pole sitter Will Power. Justin Wilson is in 3rd place, Neil Jarney 4th. Then behind Jarney is Graham Rahal, and behind Rahal is Bruno Junqueira and Simon Pagenaud. So a long, long way to go. So 1 hour and 45-minute race as per usual in the Champ Car World Series. We can see most people starting on the red sidewall Bridgestone Potenta tyres, the slightly softer of the 2 options coming into this weekend. And as per normal, the teams and drivers have to use at least 1 set of each tyre during the race. Michel Beisner is standing by for us in the pit lane as we watch Sebastian Bourdais coming through this very technical part of the racetrack, and it's very, very bumpy down there as well. A little bit farther in the back there is Mario Dominguez putting the pressure now on Catherine Legg, that the battle for 14th and 15th.
Cal Coven, team owner of PKV. Can you give us an update on Tristan and his long-term prognosis?
He's going to be fine. He'll probably be out of the car for a couple of races. He's got a crack in his one of his lower vertebrae and some bruising, but he's got a lion heart. He's a tough guy. He'll be back.
You definitely feel good about pulling him when you did?
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, the guy was in the car ready to go qualify. He'd had a good warm-up session. Dr. Chris Pendersky, the surgeon, came along and said, "We've just re-examined the x-rays and we think there's a problem." So I had to go to him and say, out of the car. We just couldn't risk it. And of course he was very upset. But as I said, he's a lionheart. He'll be back.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Michel Beisner there with the team owner of PKV Racing, Kevin Kalkoven, as we see one of the replacement driver for Christian Gobadi, Mario Dominguez, making a pass down the inside, getting past Catherine Legg. On board with Will Power, 2nd places in the early stage.
Demanding racetrack here in Edmonton.
So on board still with Will Power, he's chasing Sebastian Bourdais. Did Sebastian make a little bit of a mistake down there? Looked like he got a little bit closer going into turn 7. These corners here, just quicker and quicker and quicker, leading onto this back straight.
They do get progressively quicker and progressively bumpier, which makes it all the more difficult. Now this is the turn 10 corner we're heading into, just to give you a perspective on the track here. And this is this is the important corner to get a good run off of. This is 11 and 12. You carry a lot of speed in here, try and keep the minimum up, and then back to power as early and as hard as you can, because it's essentially flat out from here now all the way down to the first corner. But just watch the bumps again through this section. You can see it, you can hear it even. You can hear the car bottoming out, and you have to be very careful about how low you set this car up. Of course, ride heights being a very key setup point on these DP01 chassis. So through the quick 2-3 chicane, back again across the track for turn 4, bit of a compression, very quick. This is a very physically tough part of this track, and because it's so busy, you've got 9 corners pretty much consecutive without a straightaway to rest yourself. And with the kind of downforce that these Champ cars produce, that is incredibly physically demanding, and they have to do that for 1 hour and 45 minutes straight. And let me tell you, Jeremy, that is no mean feat.
It certainly is not. It's a real challenge, this racetrack, and it's one that the drivers really, really enjoy. So we've got 9 laps in the books. Long, long way to go in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. A special welcome to our viewers across Canada on the Global Network. Jeremy Shaw here with James Hinchcliffe in the early stages of the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. Rexall Speedway at the city centre airport, just a few miles away from the downtown area. Good crowd on hand, perfect weather conditions we've had all weekend. Although right now, James, a little bit of cloud cover.
A little bit of cloud cover, but I really don't think that's going to affect the race. You know, if anything, with the clouds going on, it's been a very hot weekend here in Edmonton. When the sun's out and the track temperature raises, you tend to get a little bit of a greasy racetrack. The rubber that's been laid down through the course of the weekend heats up, produces a little bit of oil, and it actually makes the track very slippery. So the drivers, if anything, will be happy, not only from a setup, from a car driving point of view, to have a little bit of a cooler racetrack, but also cooler conditions inside the cockpit.
Like Will Power ran a little bit wide there coming out of turn 9. The previous lap, he'd set the fastest lap of the race thus far, a 1 minute .822, and the top guys are very, very closely matched. It's just thousandths of a second, covering the first, well, half a dozen drivers in actual fact. This is on board with Robert Dominguez, who's running in 9th place. He started 10th, but Robert he knows he's got a good car this weekend, James.
Yeah, he does. He was quickest in warm-up, and again, now we're going through this bumpy section. We're doing this is in the helmet of the driver, so you can really watch the hands to see the movement, I should say, and just look at the movement that's in the driver's helmet, down through the gears. This dashboard in front of you gives you a ton of information on what the car is doing, different parameters, engine parameters, temperatures, wheel speeds, and then of course all the buttons for your radio, your drink bottle, your pit lane speed limiter. That is the control center, the brain of the race car, and this tons of information for the driver. Also notice that his gloves are rolled up, Jeremy.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to point that out to you, James. He's trying to get a little bit of air. It's hot out here. It's a real physical workout, but Robert Dominguez is certainly one of the best prepared drivers physically.
Super fit is Robert Dominguez. He's got an intense training regimen, and by rolling up his gloves, exposing a little bit of skin, you just get some cool air actually under the skin, and that helps lower your overall body temperature. And the lower you can keep your body temperature, the better that the less you will fatigue, I guess, over the course of a Grand Prix distance.
Having said that, I'm not too sure the officials are going to be terribly pleased to see that on-board shot. They don't want to see skin. That's why you have all this fireproof equipment for the drivers to wear. But nevertheless, Sebastian Bourdais just turns his best lap so far, 1:08.07. Neil Jarni has now responded with the fastest lap of the race. It's oh so close. Jarni in 4th place at 1:07.17. Sebastian Bourdais at 1:08.07. So just fractions of a second.
But that is on genuine pace. I mean, Neil Jarni has not used any of his 60 seconds of the Cosworth power to pass. Of course, pushing the Cosworth power to pass gives you an extra 50 horsepower for the duration of your time on the throttle, and only of the guys in the top 5, only Justin Wilson has used it, and that's only for 6 seconds. So everyone being pretty conservative at the start of the race.
I fancy that was when Justin made that move on Neil Jarni going into turn 1 at the beginning of lap 2. On board again then with willpower. Great on-board footage that the Team Australia car is giving us, and over those bumps. That is just brutal. I mean, you drove around, you've done 2 Atlantic races here this weekend, James. It really is you know you've done a day's work, don't you, when you've driven around here for a whole race distance?
You certainly have. This is one of the tracks where you kind of have to earn your pay as a driver, just because it's so technical, so fast, and so physically demanding. I mean, this is what drivers train for. A lot of people don't appreciate how physical driving one of these champ cars really is, but you've got a 1,500-pound race car that's generating 3,000 pounds of downforce. You've got no power steering. The faster you go, unlike in a road car, the heavier the steering gets. And then added onto the bumps mean that you have to really death grip the steering wheel. It's got 750 horsepower. This is one beast of a machine, and you do have to be at the top of your physical game in order to make one of these cars go quick, especially for an hour and 45 minutes straight.
Exactly right. I fancy towards the end of this race, that is when mistakes are going to be made. But these drivers, they take their racing very, very seriously. This is a top professional level, and the drivers treated as such. Many of them have their own personal trainers, personal nutritionists. I mean, they work out all the time. So look at the race analysis. 1.973 miles around this racetrack, just over 3 kilometers. The race distance will be 105 minutes, 1 hour and 45 minutes. If we were to go green all the way, we would anticipate maybe 101, 103 laps, something of that order. So that's a long way to go. We just completed lap 14. Sebastian Bourdais continues to go a little bit quicker, but now it's Simon Pagenaud who has set the fastest lap so far, down into the 1:06.633 for Simon Pagenaud. So the 7th place driver just set the fastest lap so far.
And that's interesting to see, because Simon was really quick earlier in the weekend. He qualified second to Sebastian Bourdais in Friday's qualifying session, and was really looking for more on Sunday, and wasn't quite able to get the lap that he wanted. Ended up being 7th overall in the grid. So this proves he's got a fast race car, Jeremy. With a little bit of strategy and some good, fast, consistent laps, he should be able to jump some of these guys. Of course, a full course caution coming in at the right place could help him out. It's a lot of it's chance, a lot of it's strategy, but at the end of the day, if you've got the pace, you can improve your position.
It is about strategy. There is Neil Jarni, and he is being implored by his team to save as much fuel as he can, and most of the drivers in that same situation. Basically, it's a 3 pit stop race this afternoon. We're expecting, if there are no full course cautions. However, a couple of team managers have told me that if they have maybe just as little as 11 or 12 laps of yellow or full course caution, during which the cars will be running at much reduced pace, then they could save enough fuel, perhaps save a complete pit stop as well. Then perhaps it would become a 2 pit stop race. So in the early stages, therefore, the teams and drivers are planning perhaps for that eventuality. As the race develops, if it looks increasingly likely that it will be indeed a 3-stop race, then they will tell the drivers you can use a bit more fuel. Now, unlike in other forms of racing, particularly let's say Formula 1, where they have various controls on the steering wheel to enable them to control the fuel mixture, how much fuel is being burned by the engine for a given amount of horsepower, none of that is allowed now in the Champ Car World Series. The only way a driver can save fuel is to be less hard on the throttle.
Exactly, and that's a very tough talent, or I guess skill for the rookies in this series, like Graham Rahal, who we're watching now, to pick up when they graduate. A lot of drivers have really struggled when they first come to Champ Car with this whole fuel saving concept. Pagenaud, Rahal, Dornbosch, all of these guys have really struggled to understand how to really do that and still maintain a good pace. And actually, next time we get to an onboard, Jeremy, let's see if we can try to listen to Graham's throttle. And you can see that he's going to lift off. He lifts off there and probably hits the brakes there. So you can see that there was probably a good second delay from when he lifted off the throttle to when he applied the brakes. And it's that second of not being at full throttle at max speed that you're going to save a bit of fuel. Let's try and listen again as we head into turn 1. Listen for when he lifts off and when you can kind of see the car slow down. See, he won't be braking until about the 3 marker, and he was lifting off about the 5. So this is how you save fuel, and because everyone's doing it, the pace is a little bit less, but you've still got to make sure that you're flowing a ton of speed in.
Yeah, you might say that's not racing, but I tell you what, it is racing, and you can see how hard Graham Rahal is trying to go to keep up with those guys ahead of him.
Catherine Legge and Alex Figge early in the race at Edmonton.
So there is battles all the way down the field. Catherine Legge, boy, she's had a tough weekend, has Catherine. That's Alex Figge now closing up on her. And Alex, too, he had a bit of a tough time. He was off the road on Friday. A little bit farther forward. This is the battle for 9th and 10th places, with Paul Tracy there. And then Oriol Servia battling to hold off Dan Clark. So battles all the way up and down the field, and it's there's certainly no doubt about it. The drivers are battling to save fuel at this stage, but they can't afford to lose much time either.
No, exactly, and that's the precious balance that you have to try and find as a driver. It's such a tough thing to do, and look at the bumps as the cars go over there just off the side of turn 9 there. In fact, on the exit of turn 9 last year, there was a concrete wall, which of course made that an incredibly daunting corner, but this year they've removed the wall and have some runoff. But Jeremy, we've gone to a full course caution on the track.
We have gone to a full course caution. We'll have to find out why that is. There is Dan Clark. He's had another exciting weekend, as well as he always seemed to do. But debris in turn 7 we are hearing. There is Oriol Servia. So under caution for the first time in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. Still a long, long way to go. I'd like to give a special welcome to our viewers across Australia on the 7 network, joining us today and for the rest of the 2007 Champ Car World Series season. Delighted you guys could join us, and I think we're in for an exciting race this afternoon. And of course, everybody's looking forward to going to Surfers Paradise in a couple of months' time. That, for everybody, is always one of the highlights of this entire Champ Car World Series schedule. Great on board here, shot here from Will Power's Team Australia car. This is a very nifty little camera, and when we get back up to racing speed, if we get some shots from here, you really appreciate how the suspension's moving over these bumps. It's, like we said, a very, very bumpy circuit in some sections, and this will be a good camera to try and see how this all works. And just listen to the RPMs on it. He was running there in absolutely top gear, minimum revs, trying to save as much fuel as he possibly can. Just a quick note while we're under caution to all our world viewers. We apologise now. We understand you did not have timing and scoring in the early stages. We believe that's now up and running, so thanks for bearing with us on that one. A couple of timing glitches here in the early stages, but we've now got this race well and truly underway, and Sébastien Bourdais, it is who leads on board here with Will Power, and it's great to see these different camera angles, James. It really gives us a different perspective on how these drivers have to work.
Yeah, I mean, the more cameras we get, the more you can appreciate, the more you can see, the more you can understand. And because jumping into a race car is not something that the average person can just do any given day. I mean, if you watch basketball, you can grab a basketball, go throw it at a hoop. If you want to, if you watch hockey, you can grab a stick and shoot a puck into a net. But it's not that easy for people to jump into a race car just to kind of see what it's like and appreciate what these guys are really capable of. So the more cameras we have, the more information we can give you, the more you can kind of understand what these guys are doing. And let me tell you, this is no easy job. These guys are true athletes and absolute professionals.
Yeah, you're a professional too. The Atlantic Series, of course, I had a bit of a play last weekend myself in the FF2 Formula 4 2000 car. I can tell you that was a real workout even for that level. But here we are, first pit stops of the day, and just about everybody coming onto pit lane.
Indeed, Sébastien Bourdais, the leader of the race, brings the car in. They decide to go to the black tires. One quick turn of wing on the left front, and they've got a problem. They're trying to get out. Captain Leg is coming in. Graham Rahal behind them, but it was a... Will Power just completed his pit stop. He switched from the primary tires to the red tires, and there is a funnel here at the end of the pit lane.
Look at that, there's a shuffling of the order there. It's not the McDonald's car who comes out in front, is it? We thought it might have been the CDW car of Justin Wilson. No, there is Will Power for Team Australia. Looks like he's got the best of that pit stop exchange, and we believe he's out ahead of Justin Wilson, then the McDonald's car of Sébastien Bourdais, then his Newman Haas Lanigan teammate Graham Rahal in fourth place still. Let's see what Pagenaud, he's made up ground as well, James.
Yeah, he has. Great job from the Walker Team Australia guys to get both their cars a jump in position. So Newman Haas Lanigan, I think they struggled a little bit with Sebastian's car. They had a slight problem, I think Bill was saying, and lost a few positions. That's going to cost them a little bit. Not only track position in the second stint is very important. So it's going to be interesting to see how the race develops from here with Will back out in front, obviously starting from pole.
Yeah, that's exactly where Will Power wants to be. He was telling me at the beginning of the weekend, he's thrilled with the way the season is going, right in contention for the championship. Came into the weekend just a couple of points behind Robert Dornbos, but right there. And he started off the season really strongly in qualifying. The last couple of races, a little bit disappointing by Will's standards in terms of his qualifying position, because he certainly still has the best average qualifying position of anybody coming into this weekend. But he was only second on the grid in Toronto, but he was seventh only in Toronto last time out. Of course, he ended up winning that race as a result of a great drive once again in wet conditions in Toronto. But he said to me this weekend, I really want to qualify up front. I want to get those bonus championship points, because if you start from the front, it just makes it a heck of a lot easier.
It certainly does. And he also said that he wants to try and win one of these races from pole. He's not done that yet. Every time he gets pole, something seems to kind of go wrong. I lied. Maybe Vegas. Vegas was a good race. Did he start from pole in Vegas? I believe he did, yeah, but we are back to green flag racing. Will Power leads them. Everybody seems to stay in line heading into the first corner, and now let's see if Will Power can lay the hammer down and try and pull up a gap over Justin Wilson, who we know is very fast and loves this Edmonton circuit.
He does. There is Will Power right behind in the CDW car of Justin Wilson, then the McDonald's machine of Sébastien Bourdais, the Medizone car of Graham Rahal, and then the second of the Aussie Vineyards car. There is Simon Pagenaud under intense pressure from the Walmart machine of the R-Sport team, and Alex Tagliani, the best placer of the Canadians.
Yeah, he's doing a great job right now trying to track down Simon Pagenaud. That's the battle for fifth place that we're watching, and both of these guys have moved on to the black sidewalled Bridgestone tires. Of course, Bridgestone, the sole tire supplier for the Champ Car World Series, brings two compounds to each race. A red sidewall, which is a slightly softer compound, adds a little bit more grip, but also then falls away, deteriorates quicker than the black sidewall tire, a little bit harder compound, but slightly more consistent over a long run. So with these guys on the same tire, it's all down to car and driver to see who can come out on top.
And over the last few years, the drivers and teams have got used to the changes in the characteristics of the car when they bolted off the different tires, so from the reds to the blacks or the blacks to the reds. They're still really learning how the different tires affect the chassis, these new DP01 chassis. And most of the teams are saying when you put the softer tires on, the cars goes a little bit more to understeer, I believe.
That's right, and of course by understeer, what Jeremy means is when you turn the steering wheel, the front end is not as responsive as you'd like, so you kind of have to turn it more than you'd think to get the car to go around the corner. Essentially just not enough grip in the front of the car. It's almost like turning on snow. You turn the wheel but the car keeps going forward. The opposite then, of course, is oversteer. That's when you turn in and the back end of the car starts to come around on you and you have to start correcting. So the balance with these red sidewall tires seems to get a little bit more understeer into the car, and so as a result, these teams have to compromise on their setup a little bit because they have to use both the red and black sidewall tires throughout the course of this race.
There is Bruno Junqueira. Right behind Bruno Junqueira is the car number 7 of Oriol Servia. The two Forsyth Championship racing cars started uncharacteristically far back on the grid alongside each other on the 7th row in 13th and 14th. But there is PT Paul Tracy flying over the curbs there in turn 3. This great rhythm section of the track through. It really is a great place to watch the cars. You know, if you're here in the grandstands at Edmonton, you can see probably 90% of the racetrack from any one particular vantage point. It's a great place to watch a motor race, and PT has already worked his way up to 7th place.
Yeah, he's absolutely on a charge. His teammate Oriol Servia also up now to 9th. So the Forsyth Championship Racing crew doing a great job in the pits, and their drivers doing a stellar job on track, managing to pick a few people off, because this track here at Edmonton, because it's so fast, it's a bit difficult to pass, and that's because with these quick corners, these cars generate a lot of downforce, but they also kick off a lot of what we call dirty air. When they drive through the air, they disrupt it. It's not clean air, and then the car behind is not getting as much downforce out of their car when running in another car's dirty air. So with all these fast corners, it's tough for them to follow close and thus try and get that last little bit to make a pass. So both those guys doing a great job to have moved up to where they are.
And there's a good view there of the Sonny's Barbecue car. Dale Coyne Racing and Bruno Junqueira. Last time out in Toronto, he qualified 5th. He finished 5th. This weekend, he qualified 6th and now running 8th in the early stages. So Dale Coyne Racing, they're really stepping it up this year, and they're thoroughly enjoying working with Bruno Junqueira. He's got a lot of experience, of course, in the Champ Car World Series, and he's massively motivated. Of course, he's lost his ride with the Newman Haas-Lanigan team, but he really wants to stay in the series and prove that he is worthy of a top-line drive. And Bruno has really stepped it up this year, and that whole Dale Coyne Racing team has responded. And now they seem to be, after a little bit of a doldrums in races 4, 5, and 6, they've now bounced back strongly in Toronto, and again running well here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jeremy, Bruno started the season very strong, was running 4th in points, I think, after 3 races, doing a phenomenal job, and then had that sort of mid-season slump. Didn't do quite as much testing as some of the other teams, but Bruno's certainly back on form and really giving these guys a run for their money and really impressing the Dale Coyne team.
And after those first 3 races, they actually did a shaker rig program where they put the car on a shaker rig which mimics the racetrack, and they tried to develop the car.
Dale, how are we today? Bruno Junqueira has done significantly better in the last couple of races. You're having some problems with Catherine, but what are you attributing to Bruno's success?
Well, we didn't do a lot of testing in between the big break, but we went out and did some shaker rig work and some testing, and it showed well for Bruno. Couple guys, we had a good pit stop. Couple guys got us there because they were hitting at the far end, which is always an advantage. But we're looking for a nice top 5 today. Would be nice.
Well, what's it going to take to get there?
We just got to keep pedaling. We all got to keep pedaling hard, and Bruno will push hard. He knows when to push hard, and when to save fuel, and how to do it.
Dale Coyne there, the owner of the Sonny's Barbecue car, of Bruno Junqueira, also of Catherine Legg's machine as well. Catherine certainly struggling in the early stages. She's at the back of the field. Quick word also about Neil Jarney. He was running strongly in the very early stages of the race. Had some sort of a problem in his pit stop. Rejoined at 17th and last after this latest caution period. He's worked his way past Catherine Legg and also Alex Figge. So Jarney now up into 15th, and closing up on Ryan Diel, who's also fallen back from a very strong early run to the race.
Yeah, both of those guys having a problem, definitely struggling. As we look back now from Will Power, we're looking back to Justin Wilson. The gap just about 2 seconds now, so Will's done a pretty good job of opening that up. As you can see there, that little graphic in your corner of your screen, lap 24, 25 about the same, lap 26 pulled out about 2/10, and it looks to have set another good lap this time by. So Will's certainly on a charge and taking control of this race early on.
And I think the fact that caution period came when it did is almost certainly going to make this, I believe, a 3 pit stop race. I think we're going to see less fuel saving perhaps now than we did in the early stages, because you can probably do about lap 27, lap 28 on a full tank of fuel, but they made the pit stop run about lap 20 or 21, I think. So I believe that's going to make it almost certainly a 3 pit stop race. So I think we're going to see much more of a mano a mano stuff right now, and just get on there and drive it as quickly as you possibly can, and don't worry about the fuel situation situation.
And that's what we want to see. And as you saw in that graphic there, Will did pull out another couple of tenths over Justin. So he's certainly in control of this race. He does have the fastest lap right now. So Will Power out in front, doing a great job here in the Grand Prix of Edmonton.
Just a second, almost 3 seconds. On board now with the second place car of Justin Wilson, looking back at Sebastian Bourdais. Sebastian Bourdais, of course, took the lead at the start. He just improved his personal best fastest lap last time around, down in the 1 minute 0.6 range. That was Sebastian Bourdais. Justin Wilson, he's still in the 61 second bracket, and the only guys under 1 minute 1 second last time around were this man, Will Power, our race leader, and Sebastian Bourdais. But still a long way to go. We've got an hour and 11 minutes to go in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton, and Will Power leads for Team Australia. That Aussie Vineyards car just working absolutely perfectly for him pretty much all weekend long. Will Power making the most of it. Want more Champ Car race action? Subscribe to Race Director. Just go to www.champcar.ws and choose for 6 different camera angles while you listen to the team radio communications and view live telemetry, all on your home computer. 30 laps completed in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. It's Will Power who leads, and he's just, well, he was edging away a little bit. Actually, last time around, Justin Wilson just a little bit quicker, but a gap just a little bit less than 3 seconds. Craig Hampson is the race engineer for Sebastian Bourdais. Rick de Buell is with Craig Hampson.
We're here with Craig Hampson, who can answer the question. First off, frustrated with the pit stop, but how's the car?
I think the car's okay. It looks like Will Power is a little quicker than Justin, and we're just kind of bottled up behind Justin right now. I mean, that pit stop, that's a tough deal. I mean, yellow flag stop's the last thing we wanted to see. We're back here with a lousy pit position because of what happened in Toronto, and just every time it's going to come in under yellow, it's going to look like rush hour here. And frankly, the guy who does our radio, Kenny, he had a great save keeping a wreck from happening because Catherine was going to pile right into us.
All right, thanks a lot. Craig Hampson.
And Kenny Seaweck is on the radio to Sebastian Bourdais. What Craig is talking about there is pit selection. Is the teams get to pick where they want to pit along the pit lane, and they are picked according to their finishing positions from the last race. So it's Team Australia as the race winner last time out. They get to make the first pit selection, and everybody else behind after that.
Yeah, and like Craig was saying, and as you're touching on, Jeremy, with the I want to stop there. A bit of smoke coming out of this car. It looks like Mario Dominguez in the number 22, smoking heavily as he heads through the 13-14 complex or something. Yeah, this is definitely not good. That's going to be a terminal problem for him. He pulls off line there, lets the other drivers go by. He knows that there's something definitely not healthy in that Cosworth motor. That's very unfortunate for Mario, who's doing a great job substituting for the injured Tristan Gomedy.
Yeah, what a shame for Mario Dominguez. He was so excited to get an opportunity to drive these cars.
Take it straight here, off the safe location, straight ahead.
That is Phil Lepan, the team manager for sorry, beg your pardon, what am I talking about? That is, I'm still thinking back to 4 or 5 days, aren't I? That is Jimmy Vassar on the radio to Mario Dominguez, and he was excited to get an opportunity to drive. Of course, not excited by the circumstances. He certainly would not want to drive when somebody else is injured.
We had some sort of an exhaust leak early on. You're probably down on power.
That was Jimmy Vassar again on the radio to Mario Dominguez. Exhaust leak early on, down on power, and it seems that exhaust leak clearly has worsened, and maybe it's just if there's an exhaust leak, it's probably turning very, very hot air into all sorts of electrical components underneath that side pod, James.
Yeah, of course, these cars, the way the body work is packaged, everything underneath is very tight. All your electronics, all your mechanics, your motor, your exhaust, your suspension, everything's all tightly compacted like that. So if you do have a leak in the exhaust, that's going to expose a lot of components of the car to an unnecessary amount of heat and fumes, and so ultimately something is just has just failed on Mario's car. But like we say, just kind of a heartbreak for him. It's really not the way he wanted this to go, but hopefully he's done enough in the 2 short sessions he's had in this car to maybe justify him still being in San Jose. Of course, with Tristan being out for a few events, as Kevin Kalkoven touched on earlier.
Yeah, Mario was certainly running very respectably, sort of kind of in the middle of the pack and keeping pace certainly with everybody else. And he just gets used to the handling of this team. Certainly heads up to the team, the PKV team, and to Mario Dominguez for pulling that car off the track, and no need for a full course caution.
So that was just riding on board there with Robert Dornbos. Robert's currently in 10th right now, and he didn't qualify that great. He did start in the 10th position, but he had a problem in qualifying. He's had a bit of a quicker car than that all weekend. He was actually quickest, Jeremy, in this morning's warm-up. So to be honest, I was expecting a little bit more out of him by this point in the race to have moved up a little bit further. So he's struggling right now, caught up behind Oriol Servia. And like I was touching on earlier, when you're behind another race car at this track, that dirty air that you're driving in makes it very tough to close up and get that last little bit to make a pass. So Robert doesn't have the best track position right now, and it's really hurting his chances at pulling off a top 5 and trying to salvage this point and maintain that points lead. Of course, with the second place driver leading the race right now, things aren't looking great for him overall right now.
That's very true, but there's still a long way to go in this season. We're just reaching the halfway stage. Aboard again with Robert Dornbos, ahead of his teammate Dan Clark. It's always good when you're ahead of your teammate, and he's chasing hard after Oriol Servia. We don't know whether he had a problem in that first round of pit stops because he was inside the top 10 then. I think he'd lost a position or two during that first round of pit stops, and now it looks like he's kind of frustrated there, held up behind Oriol.
For sure, with as close as he is, you can tell that he's actually got a faster car. He just cannot get by. And what's so cool to look at from this angle is look at how little the driver actually sees. They sit so low in these race cars that the closest point of the track that they can see directly in front of them is probably 200 feet in front. Such is their eyesight, their sight line, I should say. So very bumpy section through turn 9 there, and just such a cool camera, trying to give the viewers a bit of a perspective on what we see when we're driving these cars.
This is a battle for 9th, 10th and 11th. Four-side championship racing machine, the Indec car of Oriol Servia, and Robert Dornbos and Dan Clark, the two Team Minardi USA entries right behind them there. And I'm fairly sure they're a little bit frustrated at this stage. Oriol Servia only set the 12th fastest lap of the race. That actually was his personal best this time around, 1:01.049. So lap 36, it's Will Power who leads from Justin Wilson and Sebastian Bourdais. In that first lap instance, so Hayden certainly hoping for a better run today. There's a problem, that's Catherine Legg going slowly out on the course. So it looks like her day is coming to an end as well. Cheeto, though, is well off the racing line, and hopefully they'll not bring out a full course caution. But Catherine, boy, she's had a difficult time. She was moderately quick in the first session on Friday, but then she had a major impact on Saturday morning in practice, hit the wheel very heavily with that car. The Del Coyne team did a great job to repair it and get it out for qualifying. It looks like it's an early end to her day. Let's have a look at Minardi Team USA. Paul Stoddart joined, of course, from Formula One. Keith Wiggins, also an ex-Formula One team owner back in the 90s. Their cars started 11th and 10th. Currently running 10th and 11th.
Done a little bit of a switch there. And like you say, Jeremy, it's always important to be ahead of your teammate. Now, Robert Dornbos, just one lap ago, was right on the tail, right on the gearbox of Oriol Servia, and I was pretty convinced that he was going to try and move soon. He's getting a bit impatient. He's used 15 seconds of his Cosworth power to pass, but now he seems to have fallen back a bit, and it's Dan Clark who seems to be on the offense, trying to maybe get around his teammate. So great little battle here going on in the midfield.
Yeah, certainly a lot of intrigue there, I think, in the midfield of this race, but for Robert Dornbos, no doubt disappointing. He wants to be running up at the front with Will Power, Justin Wilson and Sebastian Bourdais. Came into the weekend leading the points. And he came into this race with a lot of confidence, despite the fact he was starting farther back down the order. But we think perhaps some kind of a problem in that first pit stop. He's now back in 10th place, but still an awful lot can happen. 39 laps completed in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. We're watching there Ryan DeYell, who's certainly running very, very well in the early stages of this race. Made a great start from 8th on the grid to run 6th in the early laps, then fell back also in the pit stops. And there is Neil Jarney, who was also running up towards the front of the pack, away from the start line, but he too had problems during his pit stop and needs to now battling for 13th and 14th.
This is kind of the race of the woulda, coulda, shouldas, Jeremy. Both these guys not always at the front, but certainly running well this weekend. Neil got into third on the start, passed by Justin Wilson, running a comfortable fourth before that pit stop. Had a problem there, and of course Ryan, while running sixth, had to spin all on his own. So, you know, both these guys sort of racing their heart outs, but definitely frustrated at the way that their afternoons unfolded so far. Now there is 40 laps in the books, just over an hour remaining, so there is still a long ways to go in this race. A few well-timed yellows could get these guys moved up and try and get themselves back into the top 10.
That's right, right now they're shown as about 25 seconds behind our race leader. Will Power still does lead this race with 40 laps now completed, but Justin Wilson is closing in. The last couple of laps have been very quick indeed. Justin Wilson just set the fastest lap of the race. We were on board the CDW car. The gap now from first to second, it was almost 3 seconds. It's now just over 1 second, and you can see the gap back to Sebastian Bourdais, who again set his personal best lap on that last time around, a 1 minute 0.3. So it's the pace now, James, is hotting up.
It is picking up, and that's what we want to see. We want to see what these guys can do, what they're capable of, and what sort of lap times they can pull. You know, Sebastian Bourdais will obviously be very upset with losing that lead in the pit stop, really by no fault of his own, as Craig Hampson touched on, had something to do with where they are in pit lane and a few other factors. So he'll be a little bit hot under the helmet, but that's what he likes. I mean, he certainly drives well, I should say, when he's in under those conditions and under that kind of pressure. So we'll see what Sebastian can pull out, and of course this man, kind of a specialist here at Edmonton.
Yeah, fascinating part of the race here. There goes Will Power. He just responded as he completes another lap as we watch that back to that battle between Oriol Servia and the two Minardi Team USA cars. But Will Power responded there with a 60.418 second lap. So that gap between first and second remains at just about 1 second. A little bit farther back then behind Wilson and Bourdais is Graham Ray. He's about 5 seconds back in fourth place, 5 seconds behind Bourdais that would be. And there again, here's this battle here. It's been raging now for quite a long time. We're watching Oriol Servia, one of the Forsyth Championship racing machines. His teammate Paul Tracy is still in 7th place. A couple of laps ago he was on the radio to his team, feeling perhaps he had a puncture in that car. There is onboard telemetry on these cars, and the information on how the car is performing is relayed back to the team. The team says on the pit lane, on the pit wall, everything looks just fine, James.
Yeah, they do have little sensors that have tire pressure settings that's sent back to pit lane, so the team can see if the tire is losing pressure. They say it's fine, so he may have just picked up a little bit of debris, may have run offline, got some dirt on the tire, so he'll clean that off and be back underway, back up to speed. But it's still this battle we're watching. Robert Dornbos desperately needs and wants to get by Oriol Servia.
Michelle Beisner in pit lane.
Neil Nickelwright, VP of Operations for Team Forsyth. You made some adjustments to both cars this weekend because you weren't happy with Servia's and Tracy's. What did you do?
Basically, we felt we kind of got ourselves into a black hole where nothing was making an awful lot of sense. So we did some major changes on Paul's car overnight, and I think we've gotten a little bit closer. You know, race pace-wise, we're only about 3/10 off the leaders. We made some other changes on Oriol's car, which don't seem to be as effective.
Well, they've both jumped up, but we've seen Tracy come from behind and win the whole thing. Can we do it again here in Edmonton?
You know, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because obviously we went with a reverse strategy at Cleveland. We're not in a position to do that now, but you know, the guys just got us 3 spots in the pit stop, so we'll see if we can't gain some more.
Thanks, Neil Nickelwright. And Paul Tracy, he goes quicker that time around as well, 1 minute 0.651, so his best lap within a half a second of our pace setter at the moment, which is now, which was Sebastian Bourdais. That was the last lap around. This lap, however, it's the second of the Newman Haas Landingen cars. Graham Rahal sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 0.004 seconds. Here's a good look at the gap between first and second. A couple of laps ago, it was just over 1 second, and now Justin Wilson has narrowed that gap by about 0.2 of a second, James.
Yeah, he's taken nearly 0.3 out of him now. So Justin Wilson on a charge. You can visibly see the gap getting smaller. So at this part of the race, these drivers are all exchanging fastest laps. Power had it, Wilson had it, Bourdais has it. Now it's Rahal. Actually, first through fourth are that reverse order is how the fastest laps currently sit. So everybody is doing their best to try and pull out a little bit of a gap and show what they can do. Will Power being in the best position, being out in front with clean air. Everyone else kind of having to deal with a little bit of dirty air off the car in front. So so he's sitting best. But Justin Wilson's still the fastest guy around right now.
And you can see Justin's on the harder tire, the black sidewall tires, and here is our race leader on the softer tire, the red sidewall tire. So again, these tires seem to be pretty closely matched. We've seen in the past that the red tires, as you were talking about earlier on, tend to go off perhaps just a little bit sooner than the blacks. The blacks may be just a little bit more consistent, but a bit of more ultimate pace in the reds, and Will Power's maybe just showing that now. He steps it up once again, the gap back to over 1 second between himself and the CDW car there of Justin Wilson. A 1 minute .183 last time around for Will Power.
Like you say, just all of these guys are absolutely on it through this 13-14 chicane. So bumpy through there. And look, even Justin's got his gloves turned up and try and get a little bit more, I should say, lower his body heat a little bit as he heads through the first corner here. So this is getting exciting now. And like I said, these guys are just duking it out for fastest lap of the race.
Here's a look at the power to pass that they've used so far in this race. You can see only Justin Wilson and Simon Pagenaud of the top 5 drivers yet use any of their 60-second allocation. That button on the steering wheel, generally the green button on the top left there on that steering wheel of Justin Wilson. Press that button, it gives them an extra 300 RPMs, about 50 horsepower, and that's worth probably at least 8 or 9 car lengths on a typical straightaway here, on the relatively short straightaways here on the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. And I think that's why they're using it fairly sparingly, because you can see the gap between first and second is a lot more than 7 or 8 car lengths, so you're not really going to get any advantage by using it when you're this far behind.
No, using it now doesn't make much sense, Jeremy. This is kind of the last resort for getting past a driver. It's that last little bit you need once you're right up there with him, that last burst of power to get the pass done. So for Justin Wilson right now, obviously way too far back to get that. But if he can keep closing this gap up, last time around it was just at a second, then he might have an opportunity to use it. But of course, Will could then use it in a defensive way if he sees Justin coming down on him. So either way, it's a bit of a chess match at this point.
I think a cat and mouse game all around, is it not? Because Will Power, you know, when he goes out on those red sidewall tires, he wants to make sure that he doesn't overuse those softer tires in the early stages of the stint. So therefore he keeps more life in those tires for later on. Very, very important is tire management.
Tire management is key, especially at a track that is this fast, because these fast corners really, really wear down on these Bridgestone tires. So Justin Wilson just seems like he's getting ever so close to the back of that Team Australia car, and we could have a little bit of a showdown here, but pit stops have to be coming up soon, and in green flag conditions, that's really going to challenge these drivers. So Will Power leads from this man, Justin Wilson, with 48 laps in the books here in the Grand Prix of Edmonton.
So here on board again with Justin Wilson. You can see that gap from first to second. It's now less than 1 second. He's only, what, about 8 or 9 car lengths now. It's pretty close. And Justin Wilson just been edging closer and closer to Will Power. Is Will Power's car sliding around a little bit more now, James?
Well, it looked like he had a bit of a problem, Jeremy, because he slowed way up heading through turn 9. I hope we can try and get back to that, because he was certainly closing on him faster than he should through that part of the racetrack. So maybe we'll have a bit of a problem. I'd hate to think you might be running out of fuel this close to a pit stop window, Jeremy.
That's what I was going to suggest, perhaps, because there are some of the teams. There is Jan Halen and Neil Jarni also in for their second round of pit stops, I should say. The first under green flag conditions, and away they go with Jan Halen and Neil Jarni shown in 13th and 14th place. So Will Power does not come in this time around.
No, but he definitely made a mistake coming through 7 and 8, because Justin Wilson now right on his tail, and this is going to be detrimental. Someone coming out of the pits right in front of the 2 leaders.
No tire warmers, of course, in the Champ Car World Series, so it's going to take Neil Jarni several corners to get the heat into those tires and get them up to optimal working temperature. And is that going to give Justin Wilson opportunity to make a pass?
And there's 2 cars in front of him, because Jan Halen, of course, also came out of the pits right in front of Neil Jarni. So we're heading through the 9th turn onto the back straight. This is going to be where Justin needs to get a run if he's going to get the job done. I don't think he's close enough there. Neither driver jumped on the cause with Power to pass through there. These guys have got to get by these lap cars.
They have indeed. It's certainly a pit stop including we don't know who's coming in on which lap, but look at those 2 ahead of them jockeying around for position just ahead of our race leader Will Power. And Will's got to be thinking, boy guys, get out of the way, I want past. But is he now going to take the opportunity to come onto pit lane? Yes, he is.
All right, so Will Power, your leader, has dove into pit lane. Justin Wilson stays out, as does Sebastian Bourdais. He inherits the lead. And now these two drivers being able to go one lap longer in this stint, Jeremy, as another car comes out of the pits, all right in front of Justin.
Now, and what you were going to say there is, generally speaking, doing one more lap at speed is going to give you an advantage. However, those two are now held up by the slower traffic. Great call by Team Australia. They knew Will was perhaps going to lose out there if he had to come in sooner, but by coming in then, if they can get him now out on a clean track, he might yet emerge when everybody has made their pit stops, might well still have the lead. We'll have to wait and see. Fascinating stuff.
This could be a brilliant call from Team Australia. Of course, Dave Faustino, the lead engineer on Will Power's car, as we look back on now with your leader, Justin Wilson, during green flag pit stops. All very exciting here at Edmonton.
On board with our new race leader, Justin Wilson. Pit stop looming. Is he going to go straight on here instead of turning right into the king? Yes, he is. Sebastian Bourdais, however, does stay out one more lap. So apparently an advantage here to Newman Haas Lanigan Racing. Here is the CDW car pulling into the R Sports pit. This is Justin Wilson's second pit stop of the day.
Wilson is in. He'll be changing over to another set of primary Bridgestones, getting fuel into the car. Remember, pit strategy so important today. We saw a lead change on the last round of pit stops, and he's away.
So let's see where he emerges relative to Will Power.
Of course, Will Power was leading, dove into the pits a lap before this man, Justin Wilson. And then this man who's now leading has done a lap more than Justin again, so 2 laps more than Will. And as you were saying, Jeremy, that ultimately means he'll have to put less fuel in the car in this stop and could leapfrog ahead.
Particularly as he was able to get past Neil Jarney cleanly on lap. There is Robert Dornbos pitting out of 9th position. We're waiting now for Sebastian Bourdais to pull onto pit lane. A tear-off there comes off the visor. They have several tear-offs, 4 or 5 different tear-offs. Any debris on the visor will be stripped off. Boy, Bourdais took in yet another lap for Newman Haas Lanigan Racing.
And this is one thing that Sebastian is so good at, is saving fuel early in the race.
Indeed, and actually this works well into the strategy for the team. They get Ray Hall in, they go ahead and make the change on his car, and hopefully they get him out before they have a situation with Bourdais coming back in. Ray Hall, clean stop, and he's back out.
Thank you, Rick de Brule. And there is Dan Clark off the road. A huge off-course excursion there for the Englishman. Not the first time we've seen that, but this time at least he manages not to hit anything. Wow, how's he going? Well, he's sure where he went off the road. Where did he go off the road, James? You know the territory here fairly well.
I'm trying to figure this out. It looks like he's now heading into turn 10, so he'd gone back on in turn 9, which means he must have gone off the track somewhere in the turn 6 region, maybe. So went straight off into turn 6 and came back on through the turn 8-9 area. But now it's Sebastian Bourdais being held up by Alex Tagliani. He will dive into the pits this time, and your leader is now in the pit lane. This is going to be the one that calls it all.
And Rick de Brule is in the Newman Haas Lanigan Racing pit.
They were on the radio to him beforehand saying, come make one really killer lap before you get in here. In terms of adjustments, all they've done is change some tire pressure. Everything else is solid. A good long fuel stop, and he's on his way.
Pit lane speed limiter all the way down the pit lane. Boy, that feels like you're hardly moving at all there. But Sebastian Bourdais, I think that strategy is going to pull him out into the lead of the race. Justin Wilson did emerge ahead of Will Power. Whoa, there's a sideways slide. Sebastian Bourdais, he wants to get back out on the racetrack ASAP, James.
He does, and he wants to get those Bridgestone tires up to temperature because, as you said, Jeremy, no tire warmers here. And you saw in the background, Justin Wilson, the red number 9 CDW car, is in the background. So a fantastic call from the Newman Haas Lanigan guys, and brilliant driving from Sebastian Bourdais to A, save that fuel in the first stint, and B, to be able to lay down those quick laps when it mattered. He now finds himself back out in the lead of this race. That was just fantastic bit of racing.
Well, I fancy Graham Rahal might have moved up as well. We'll have to wait and see till they all cycle past the finish line one more time. But this on board with Justin Wilson, and you can see there's a pretty goodly margin ahead to Sebastian Bourdais. Michelle Beisner is standing by with Mario Dominguez, trying to get a word with Mario in a moment. Of course, his race ended prematurely after he was stepping into the shoes when Tristan Gomedy was obliged to step out of this race. He suffered a back injury yesterday after a heavy impact with the wall, and Tristan Gomedy was already struggling with an injured knee. Michelle Beisner.
Mario, you stepped in for Tristan Gomedy. You're out early. Tell me what happened out there.
Honestly, don't know. Something blew up, but it was definitely not the engine. It could have been in the gearbox, but the car was still working fine. It's, you know, at this point it's better to park it, get all the smoke. You don't want to run anybody's race out there. But it's really too bad. The pay-by-touch car was running well. I was doing my best to do a good job for the whole PKB team, you know, for Kevin Kalkoven, Jimmy Vassar, Mark Johnson, and all the guys that worked really hard. And, you know, it's not the way I wanted it, but at least I got to race. It's a good opportunity for me, and I did the best I could.
We may see you again then in San Jose. Let's get over to Rick DeBrule.
Indeed, with another driver out of the race. Unfortunately, it's such a great Atlantic race here 2 years ago when you won, and too much frustration this weekend.
This weekend has been a disaster for us. You know, we've had something wrong all weekend. We think that it's just finally given up now. You know, it gave up around the back. I was stuck in gear. We think it's diff related because it's actually been quite dangerous. It stuck me in the wall twice this weekend, and it's got this like snap, and then it will go. So I don't know. We'll have a look at it, decide what's broken, and we'll be back again in San Jose. But I tell you what, it's really starting to get a bit wearing.
Well, you can only hope at this point that you've used up all the bad luck, and it can only get better from here.
It can only get better from here. You know, my crew have done such a fantastic job after putting it back together after it did it to me yesterday. You know, they're working so hard, bless them, and I'm working hard, and it's got to come together one of these days.
All right, Kathleen Legge out of the race.
Good attitude from Katherine Legge. She won, of course, here in the Atlantic Series a couple of years ago. She won also in San Jose, where we go in 1 week's time. So one hopes that Katherine will have a bit more good fortune there. Bruno Junqueira, her Dale Coyne Racing teammate, who's currently running in 7th place. He had another shaker rig test, as Dale Coyne was telling us, after the race in Toronto 2 weeks ago. Bruno also then went on to do a one-day test at Putnam Park Raceway near Indianapolis, and they took full advantage of a day's test in there. They ran from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, so they got as many miles in as possible. The bad news for Katherine, of course, her car was still being repaired after the incident that took place on the first lap in Toronto, which was not of her doing at all. So poor Katherine unable to take part in that test. And you know, at this level you need as much seat time as you can, and Katherine really isn't getting it, James.
No, she's not, and to have to sit that test out was really unfortunate for her. I mean, that's 12 hours of track time that she essentially missed, that Bruno got, and Putnam Park's a very challenging track for them to test on, so very too bad for Katherine.
So 45 minutes to go in this race, 55 laps completed. Sébastien Bourdais leads.
So it's now up to him to try and make it all back up in this stint of the race.
So Sébastien Bourdais leads Justin Wilson by about 4.5 seconds in this very much ebb and flow race. We saw Sébastien Bourdais out early. We've seen Justin Wilson lead. We've seen this man, Will Power, lead. But now it's Justin Wilson in 2nd place. And Jay Will, he announced a new JWTV this week on his website. Go have a look at that. It's justinwilson.co.uk. And there's all sorts of video grabs on there, including an enlightening description of this lap with the onboard camera from last year. So Justin Wilson doing his bit to promote the sport, certainly, as is this man, Sébastien Bourdais. His best lap of the race yet, still not yet under the 60-second bracket, I should say. 60.053 seconds last time around for Sébastien Bourdais. He now leads Justin Wilson by just under 5 seconds. Let's have a look at the record this year for the 3-time Champ Car World Series champion. 7 races coming into this weekend. 3 wins, a 2nd place finish, and 3 DNFs. So it's very costly in terms of the championship points, and he was very, very frustrated to come here this weekend lying only 3rd in the points table, James Hinchcliffe.
Well, it's not been often in the last 3 years that Sébastien Bourdais has not been atop the championship table. And you know, this season didn't start off great for him. Of course, Will Power winning the first race, and Sébastien had to kind of bounce back from that, which he did. He took 2 victories shortly after that, and he's had bad luck in Cleveland with mechanical failure, bad luck in Toronto being taken out by Robert Dornbosch. So this season, he's really being tested. The last 2 seasons, I don't want to say it's come easy for him, because nothing is easy in this sport. He's had to work very hard for it, but it's come a bit easier.
And it's certainly going well this afternoon. Sébastien Bourdais leads in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. There is our our race leader. 4.8 seconds now the margin from first to second. In third place, the second of the Newman House Landingham cars, Graham Rahal. And the previous lap, Graham set the fastest lap of the race, 59.907. Reset the fastest lap of the race, I should say. So Graham is absolutely flying in third place. Jones about 7.5 seconds behind our race leader, and in between the two of them, the CCWS sports car of Justin Wilson.
He's only about 3 seconds behind Justin right now, and if he can keep this pace up, Justin kind of has to respond now. Graham's laid the hammer down. He's shown what he can do and that he wants to try and track Justin down, and now kind of balls in Justin's court to see if he can respond.
In the meantime, so does Sebastian Bourdais at 59.352. Annihilates the fastest lap of the race thus far by a full 0.6 of a second. So it's Bourdais there, 59.3. The last time around, improvements both for Wilson and Rahal. 59.9 for Wilson, 59.5 for Rahal. But Bourdais is flying. Bill Stevens.
Down here with Phil Howard of our sports. Phil, it looks like everybody is playing the fuel economy game. If that's what you're doing, how long can you do that before you're really going to have to hit that button?
We can do it for a little while. We're running pretty good at the moment. He's doing a really good job on fuel. The CCW car is really handling well, so we're pretty happy.
Think this is going to come down to that last pit stop?
Yeah, probably.
I saw the color drain out of his face. Keep an eye on it.
Phil Howard there, the vastly experienced team manager for the R Sports organisation, looks after the cars of Justin Wilson and Alex Tagliani. And where's Tagliani shown down in 15th place? Not quite sure what happened to him at some stage, but certainly it's this man's CCW car is pushing hard as Justin Wilson, regularly now below 1 minute laps. 59.9 again last time around, so very consistent at this stage in the race is Justin Wilson, but it looks like Sebastian Bourdais just edging clear at the front of the field.
If you're able to, mate, pick it up if you're able.
The radio there was Neil Mickelwright, the Vice President of Operations for the Forsyth Championship Racing Team, telling Paul Tracy to pick it up.
Pick it up if you're able, and that's the thing. If Paul's struggling with an ill-handling race car, you know, it's not often that when a driver's out on the track, he's not giving it 100% unless the team's told him to hold back. So I imagine right now Paul is giving it everything he can, but certainly those words from Neil are going to make him push. Oh, maybe just a little bit too hard, Jeremy, as he locks up into turn 10.
What would go through your mind if your team manager came on and said that to you?
I'd probably have a few choice words to say back to him, because I guarantee you at this point in the race, as I said, Paul is pushing. He knows what he has to do. He is a very, very experienced driver. He knows at what point of a race you have to push, at what point you have to be a little bit reserved, and he knows that right now is go time, so Paul Tracy will be doing his best.
4-0 laps to go, says Neil Mickelwright to his man Paul Tracy. There is PT flying through these sort of rhythm corners out the back of the track, but it is a workout, as we've seen already. We've seen a lot of incidents during this weekend, particularly in these couple of corners here, turn 6 and here, turn 7. All sorts of spins and red flags as a result of it during the practice and qualifying sessions.
And it's a very technical section of the racetrack, and basically why this is happening is because drivers are coming down from a very fast left-hander into a slow right-hander, and when you have the car all loaded up on the right side going through a left-hand corner to then hit the brakes, you move all the weight forward when it's already loaded to the right, and then try and turn it to the left, and then the back end of the car essentially gets a pendulum effect that goes from moving slightly to the right and snaps around to the left. And it's happened to Catherine Lake. You heard her speak about it earlier today, and you know, maybe a bit of mechanical troubles adding on to her problem. So very technical part of the track.
Move your bias rearward if you need to.
Take care of that right front. Move the bias rearward if you need to.
Watch him hammer the curbs through this. He's really pushing, and what they were telling him on the radio is we've seen Paul in the last lap lock up his right front tire twice, and if you do that, you can flat spot and really damage a tire by doing that. So they say manage the bias. That's the brake bias. We have a knob inside the cockpit that lets you adjust the amount of bias front to rear.
Good job. Chunkera's staying with you. So we'll keep an eye on him, but just keep...
There you go, Neil Mickelwright kind of giving him the update there. But
and words of encouragement too.
Absolutely. I mean, they've got to keep him encouraged. I mean, I think after they said to tell him to push a little bit more, he maybe started pushing a little bit too hard. So yes, that bias knob just helps you adjust the balance of the front and rear brakes, how much each end of the car is using. So they will have told him to wind it a little bit towards the rear, use a bit more rear brake, because he's using too much front, locking that tire and damaging it.
Yeah, these long, high-speed corners here, a lot of G-forces on this racetrack, and it really does give these Bridgestone Potente tyres a real hammering. New fastest lap for our race leader, Sebastian Bourdais. That's a new...
is pretty much matching your lap for lap. It doesn't seem like he's got anything.
That's Neil Mickelwright again. He says Bruno's matching him lap for lap. Doesn't seem like he's got anything for you, says Neil Mickelwright. New fastest lap, a new lap record for Sebastian Bourdais, 58.935. Average speed, 120.5 miles an hour. That compares to Justin Wilson's lap record, set here 1 year ago, of 59.2. So almost half a second quicker.
Well, and currently he's 6/10 quicker than the second fastest man on track, his teammate Graham Rahal. So he is on an absolutely storming pace. Just shocking how quick he's able to go. So brilliant stuff from him as we ride on board with Robert Dornbos.
So Michelle Beiser is trying to get a word with Keith Wiggins, one of the owners of the Minardi Team USA operation, and Robert Dornbos, as we said, is running now in 10th place, right behind Neil Jarni and just ahead of his teammate Dan Clark.
And Bruno Junqueira tries a move in corner one, but he goes way too deep, and Paul Tracy is able to get him back. So brave move from Bruno there, did not quite go right for him. So now he's actually lost a bit of time, and Paul Tracy's extended that gap a little bit. This is great news for Paul.
The classic under-over.
Yeah, he high-load him, we call it. You know, Bruno he went for a late move with such a wide entry in corner one. It's a really inviting corner because it's so wide beginning airport here. So here you can see Bruno's got a really good draft. I mean, you know what? He just broke too late. He really had that job. He really had that pass done. He had it made. He was alongside in the brake zone, just a little bit too anxious.
Yeah, he'd done the difficult bit. The difficult bit was getting really close behind, coming through that flat-out chicane before it got down to the inside, and then just got a little bit carried away, as you say. Actually did a good job to keep it out of the wall, didn't he?
He was oh so close, because that far off line, there's lots of dust, lots of dirt, and also lots of marbles, which is little balled up bits of rubber. You can sometimes see them in that last camera shot through the chicane, little pieces of the tire that wear off the tire throughout the course of a race. And when you get into there, it's like driving on ice. So he's done a great job to keep it off the wall there, and he's reeled Paul right back in. So Bruno definitely on a quicker pace right now, just cannot get by PT.
Yeah, getting increasingly frustrated, I would think, is Bruno Junqueira. Neil Mickelwright is doing his best job to keep his man Paul Tracy all pumped up, saying, you know, you're doing the same sort of times as Bruno. But as you say, James Hinchcliffe, I think there's little doubt that Bruno has a faster car at this stage in a race. He had his opportunity to make that pass, briefly got through, but now he's back behind the car number 3, and Bruno Junqueira has it all to do once again. Meanwhile, at the front, the pace is still just getting quicker and quicker. 59.3 last time around for Sebastian Bourdais. That's not his best lap, but Justin Wilson responded with 59.5. That's the good news. The bad news is the gap from first to second now ballooned out to 9 seconds. Graham Rahal about another 5 seconds back in third place. Then a gap back to Simon Pagenaud, and this battle here now, Paul Tracy and Bruno Junqueira battling over 5th and 6th. Where's Will Power? Oh, here is Will Power. Okay, I was going to say, where's Will? Time for another pit stop. This will be his final pit stop of the day. Great onboard, great shots there from Les Chan. They're going to make a change to the front of this car, aren't they? They're going to take the shock cover. Oh, he's turned off the engine. So, oh dear, what a disaster for Team Australia and Will Power.
Heartbreak here. This is a bit shocking, actually, for the team, because they are showing off their shock and spring package right now at this camera. They probably didn't realize that that camera was on. That's not something they want other teams to see, but they've backed off that now. Something down in the footwell, it looks like. They're looking at the rockers in the front of the car. I don't know if maybe Will made slight contact somewhere or what, but certainly there's something not right in the steering. As you can see, they may be looking in the steering rack. There's all sorts of components at the front that could go wrong, and if you have something broken there at a track like this, that could end in a serious accident. So smart move on them to bring it in and check out the car.
Heartbreak for Will Power and Team Australia. The Aussie Vineyards team are looking to clinch the Canadian Triple Crown. They came here this weekend poised to win it. They're an average finishing position of 3.0 for their 2 drivers, Will Power and Simon Pagenaud. But now it looks like Will Power will not finish this race, or even if he does, he'll be a long way back. We've got just under half an hour to go, and we're under yellow again here in Edmonton. So we're now gone under caution here at the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. Don't yet know. Well, yes,
Dornbosch. Robert Dornbosch has stopped. It doesn't look like he's hit anything, but he has stopped in what looks like heading into the 11-12 chicane. Sorry, the 13-14 chicane right in front of pit in there. Obviously, he's a bit upset, waving his hands there. Visor is up. He does need a push. When the drivers put their visor up, that's the universal sign of the safety car that their motor is dead. They need assistance. And, you know, this is not good news for another one of the championship contenders.
Minus 0.005, the 30.4 on the steering wheel. 32 gallons of fuel that they use in these cars these days. There is Will Power, so he's able to get back underway, but he is shown, I believe, a couple of laps behind. There is the car number 14 of Robert Dornbosch, the erstwhile championship leader. He for sure will lose the championship lead this weekend, or it would appear as if he would lose the championship lead this weekend. Held it for just one race. He became the first rookie to lead the overall Champ Car World Series point standings since Juan Pablo Montoya in 1999. Let's look at the total team points scored after 7 races this season. Team Australia there scored more points than anybody else, with Will Power, who is shown in second place, of course, in the points coming into here, and Simon Pagenaud 6th in the points, a total of 282. They've outscored R Sports, and there's Newman House Lanigan Racing with 262, and Minardi Team USA, even though Robert Dornbosch held the point standings lead coming in here, his teammate Dan Clark has had all sorts of disappointments this year, and as a result had scored only 64 markers coming into this weekend, lying 14th in the points table. We're still under caution here. This is Robert Dornbosch, isn't it? So
we are back
obviously
on board,
got that car going again, but he too has lost laps. He's lost just 1 lap.
Will has lost 2, with of course him diving into the pits there with that problem on the front end. You saw when he was coming out of the pits, he got stuck behind the safety car, which of course that meant the leaders had to go by.
So just around about 1/2 an hour to go here in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. Sébastien Bourdais leads under caution. There's a lot of racing history in Edmonton, traced back to an oval dirt track called Breckenridge Speedway, which was built in 1950. And of course, Edmonton International Speedway held all sorts of top-line racing here from 1968 through until 1982. The Can-Am was here, a lot of the great drivers in those days. The old Atlantic Series as well. Let's have a look at a replay here of Alex Tagliani making a pass there on Robert Dornbosch, and contact between those two. Look at the damage to the left front on Alex Tagliani's car. Tag, we think, was a lap down there, wasn't he?
So there you go. It was in fact turn 1 that this incident happened. It was not a fuel issue. That was just racing incident. I mean, bit of an ambitious move from Tagliani. Robert not able to keep the engine running, so that was just in the turn 1 area that he got stopped. So just unfortunate, just bad luck. That was kind of one of those things, you know, racing. You know, it happens.
It does, wasn't it? And certainly it would appear that Tagliani came off second best. Down to Rick de Boer.
Sébastien Bourdais, he was having to push, having to work hard. Suddenly, his 2 main competitors are out. They come in, they make a relatively short stop, and he's back out. Bill?
Well, they have got to get this pit stop right down here on Justin Wilson's car. They have made the tire change, put all the fuel into the car they can, and he's away.
Simon Pagenaud as well making a pit stop for Team Australia. And Sébastien Bourdais, we believe, has rejoined the race, still in the lead. And Justin Wilson, we think, is in second. Maybe Simon Pagenaud might be up into 3rd place, possibly ahead of Graham Rahal. We'll have to wait and see how they shuffle out there. No, there is Rahal, apparently ahead of Simon Pagenaud. Yes, so those positions did appear to stay the same. The scoring system is shown as they come across the start-finish line, and it depends on where the teams are pitted along pit lane as to how they show up on the scoring. So I think that will reset itself in a lap or 2. You see Jan Halen there and one of the Minardi Team USA cars. They are between the pace car and the race leader, and they will be able to wave the back pass and get back onto the tail end of the lead lap before we get back to competition. So there is Tagliani. We saw the damage to the left front suspension on that car. And Alex Tagliani's been sporting a new livery for the 3 Canadian races in support of the Tide at Walmart Victory Lap charity program, which benefits the Children's Miracle Network. Here's a look now at the Atlantic races earlier this weekend. James Hinchcliffe alongside me has started from the pole. James, you led the early stages, but you're kind of dead meat there at that restart.
Yeah, kind of a sitting duck on those restarts. My teammate Rafael Matos went on to win. We finished 3rd. Good result for CRC. Our team. We have 2 cars up on the podium.
And that was Rafael Matos winning his 5th race of the season. That was yesterday. And then this morning, a couple of hours ago this morning, Rafael Matos robustly defends that inside line from Frank Pereira, who started alongside him. And very shortly thereafter, he was assessed a penalty. There is a penalty being served by Matos. He has to let Pereira go through. He was adjudged to have unfairly blocked the race leader. Again, a replay from on board there. Well, this is later on in the race when Pereira had the problems in the late stage. We believe he was running out of fuel starvation in the closing laps. And there goes Matos to claim his 2nd win of the weekend and put himself in a commanding position in terms of winning the $2 million prize for the Champ Car Atlantic Series. So inside now, just over 26 minutes to go in this race. They've really just made their final pit stops of the day. A couple of guys on pit lane at the moment, including, I believe, maybe Will Power might be down on pit lane one more time as well. He's already a couple of laps down, and I think that was his car stationary at the head of the pit lane as a result of winning last time out in Toronto. Team Australia gets to pick which pit selection they want, and there is Will Power. And again, it's clearly some sort of he's not happy with the steering on that car. Something is amiss there.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I mean, usually you don't see failures like that happen during a race, and they're assessing all the components of the steering. I mean, the steering rack, you can see they're looking at the. He's trying to. I'm still trying to establish what they're trying to do. I saw them spraying some lube there into the steering rack, and they've had their hands down in the pedal box trying to get to all the components there. So, like you say, Jeremy, something he's not pleased about, but such a bizarre thing to happen in the middle of a race.
So there's Les Channon and the guys working away on that car number 5. They're going to try and get him back out in the fray. We're under full course caution, so he's losing less time relative to the leader than he would do if it was under green flag conditions. But certainly Will Power is losing any hope of even a top 10 finish this afternoon, and that could spell disaster for Team Australia's hopes in the Champ Car Canadian Triple Crown. They came in here with a handy lead over the R Sports organisation and Newman Haas Lanigan Racing in 3rd place, and I have to try and do a little bit of mathematics here and figure out how they're going to be placed. But certainly Newman Haas Lanigan is doing a very good job this afternoon, running 1st and 3rd with Sebastian Bourdais and Graham Rahal.
It was actually R Sports that were 2nd in that championship coming into this round, but of course with Alex Tagliani now being out, their chances of taking it have seriously diminished. So, like you say, Jeremy, Newman Haas Lanigan Racing is looking very good right now to make a move. It all comes down to Simone Pagenaud, where he can finish. The higher up he gets, that is going to affect the championship outcome. But right now, the Newman Haas Lanigan car is running 1st and 3rd, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I reckon that's not going to be quite enough at this stage. If I add up the finishing position so far, I reckon Team Australia might just squeak this out. So we'll have to see. But still 24 minutes to go in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. So it's great to be here in Edmonton. There's a lot of history here, as we've talked about in motor racing here, and also it's a noted sports city as well, is Edmonton. It's recently designated as Canada's cultural capital, hosting more than 20 major festivals throughout the year. It's also, of course, the capital city of the province of Alberta.
And it's a beautiful one at that, Jeremy. I mean, I've not really had much chance to travel out to Edmonton until the race started coming here, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being out here. The city puts on such a fantastic event. The people, the atmosphere, everything is great.
Yeah, it's not called the City of Festivals for nothing. This is the Festival of Speed in Edmonton. Bill Stevens is standing by in the Team Australia pit, trying to have a word with him and find out exactly what is wrong.
Disappointed Alex Tagliani, a sudden and unexpected way down the race. Alex, what happened?
Oh, well, it started when we ran out of fuel on the first stint, and on the second stint, sorry. And after that, we were a lap down, and was trying to push really hard. Car was really good. I was trying to get ahead of Dominguez because he was slowing me down, and then we were going to stay out when everybody was going to pit and try to get our lap back. And they kind of shut the door on me in turn 1, and we got contact, so it was unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. We'll see you in a week.
Yeah, well, great shame there for Alex Tagliani. Of course, he goes from here to San Jose. He has a little bit of history in San Jose, does he not?
I believe he may have tried his hand at boxing in San Jose last year.
So we're getting ready to go back to green. We've got 22 minutes to go in the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. Sebastian Bourdais leads, and again seems to get a good jump at the restart. The green flags are waving. Justin Wilson settles into second place. Graham Rahal third. Simon Pagenaud in the second of the Team Australia cars now in fourth place and holding up the honour for the Aussie Vineyards team. Paul Tracy and Oriol Servia started back on the 7th row of the grid and now running 5th and 6th.
Yeah, they're doing a great job between some heads-up driving and some great calls from Forsyth Championship Racing. They've managed to get their cars into the top 10, into the top 5 with Paul Tracy. So just a great result from them if they can hold off for the rest of this race.
Yeah, that would be an excellent comeback for that team. There's Graham Rahal getting a little bit wide out of turn 9.
What you can do now, Jimmy, as I said, there was a concrete wall there last year, which made it a very intimidating corner, but now they've removed that. They've allowed you to have a little bit of extra room in case you do get it wrong there, because it's a very bumpy corner, very fast, and it's easy for the car to get a little bit upset if you just need that few extra feet of racetrack. So a good call on Champ Car's part to make that call and take that wall out, just make it a little bit safer for the drivers.
74 laps now completed. There's Neil Jarney trying to make a move there perhaps on Oriol Servia. That is a battle for 6th and 7th, the Red Bull car. Neil Jarney started off the weekend, well, mediocre actually, but he certainly qualified very well yesterday. Put that car number 21, the PKV Racing Red Bull car, 5th place on the grid. Was running in the top 5 early on. Now the problem is his first round of pit stops, but he's come back very strongly since then.
He certainly has, and he seems to be all over the back of Oriol Servia. If he can stay close to the quick turn 9, maybe get on his Cosworth power to pass. Doesn't look like he's going to do that. Can't quite be close enough to make a move.
And I don't think he's got much left of it either. Our scoring system is showing that Neil Jarney has only 3 seconds left of that Cosworth power to pass. Everybody started with exactly the same amount of usage, 60 seconds worth, but Jarney has used a lot of that in getting himself back from the tail of the field up into the top 7 or so. Rick de Brule is down in a Newman Haas Lanigan Racing pit as we watch Neil Jarney sweep through that very quick chicane, turn 13 and 14. He's not quite close enough to make a move down to the inside into turn 1. Good battles developing there up and down the field. Still, I think most of the strategy has now been played out, but there's still plenty of racing to go.
You know, Jeremy, the more I think about that incident between Alex Tagliani and Robert Dominguez, the more I want to lay blame on Alex. I mean, he really was not close enough, and especially being a lap down, going after a car like that, it just seemed like an ill-timed move. And even from his interview, Alex is usually a little bit more heated than that if he thinks he's been wronged, and he was a little bit subdued. So I think Alex knows he was in the wrong there.
The Brule in the pit lane with Newman Haas Lanigan.
Well, down here at the Rahal pit with John Tazanacanis, the engineer, and Rahal's cruising around in 3rd place, but it hasn't been easy, right?
No, it hasn't. Just about that first yellow, we had some radio problems, so we haven't been able to talk to Graham for a good part of the race. So, I mean, you know, we're just doing everything by hand signals and by the signboard, so we're getting by, and you know, the guys have done a good job, and we're running 3rd, so, you know, hopefully we'll be able to contest for the win here.
Now, at one point he had the fastest lap, so the question is, does he have anything on Justin?
Well, you know, there's still 20 minutes left to go in the race, so we'll just see what happens. I mean, you know, he's really adapted to this track ever since we unloaded, and, you know, we'll see, you know. Kid's looking good right now, so we'll see what happens.
An optimistic TZ in the Graham Rahal pit.
Yeah, thanks, Rick de Brule. TZ John Tsuanikis, T-Z-O-U-A-K-A-N-I-S is how I'm pronouncing, hence the TZ. And TZ has been with this team, well, basically since it started, an awful long time, massive amount of experience, and he calls the shots for Graham Rahal.
We call him TZ up here, Jeremy.
Yes, good point.
But no, on board Graham Rahal, and he really is doing a great job. Like TZ said, he's been top 3 every single session, and he's doing it in the race right now.
Bill Stevens with Will Power.
Down here with Will Power, a day that began with so much promise, Will, and just so many things gone wrong. What was the final straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah, he's had a steering rack, obviously a tooth or something in there broken. Yeah, I mean, I just literally could not steer the car around right-handers. It was just bound right up, so, you know, that just, it's a massive dent in the championship chase for sure. Sebastian's looking pretty good out there in the lead, so a really disappointing day.
And it's now up to your teammate, Simon Pagenaud, to try to keep that Triple Crown lead.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know where he's got to finish to get it, but yeah, hopefully we can get something out of this race if he finishes far enough up. But yeah, very disappointing. Big kick in the guts for us after starting on pole. But you know, we'll come back.
All right, thanks a lot, Will.
Thanks, Bill Stevens, and you can hear the dejection there in Will Power's voice. He had a good car all weekend long. He's looking to take advantage of it. It looks like he's going to have to settle for a 15th place finish. And you know, I wonder whether James Hinchcliffe, if he could just go out and do one more lap, that would move him ahead of Alex Tagliani from 15th to 14th in the finishing position for this race. And that's worth one extra championship point, which might be absolutely crucial at the end of the season. Also could be handy in this battle for the Canadian Triple Crown.
Yeah, you just never know. I mean, it's I'm surprised actually that Team Australia haven't looked at that, but ultimately, if it's too dangerous for Will to go out there, they're really not going to put him out there. They don't want him to interrupt the rest of the race either, so probably a good call from them for the sake of 1 point, although, you know, I can totally understand the desire to go out there and get every point possible. But Graham Rahal looking really, really good right now in the number 2 Metazone car. Of course, he had his first podium position in only his 3rd ever Champ Car start back in Houston, and he's looking really good to grab his 2nd one of the season this weekend.
Yeah, indeed. They're just having an unofficial look here at the Canadian Triple Crown standings. By my reckoning, if the race right at this stage in the game, with Will Power credited with a 15th place finish and Simon Pagenaud in 4th, I reckon that Team Australia would still be ahead of Newman Haas Lanigan Racing, even if Sebastian Bourdais and Graham Rahal could come away with a 1-3 finish. I think they'd snare it by 2 positions overall. And there's the standings coming into this race. That's the average finishing positions for each of the team's 2 drivers, except for Conquest, who only has only 1 driver. So 3.0 was the average finishing position for Will Power and Simon Pagenaud from Mont-Tremblant and Toronto, and 6.0 for the R Sports team, and just behind that 7.25 for Sebastian Bourdais and Graham Rahal for Newman Haas Lanigan Racing. Still 15 minutes to go in this race, and if Simon Pagenaud can stay where he is for Team Australia in 4th place, I fancy they might just hang on to that Inuit carving, and that's a great little trophy. They would love to have it as well. It's some recompense at least for a disappointing afternoon for Will Power, James.
Yeah, it would, and again, I think that would match Simone's best ever finish in a Champ Car World Series race. Yeah,
which he's done actually the last 2 times out, hasn't he, Simon Pagenaud? He's been super consistent these last few races. He's been fast and he's been consistent. Can't ask for much better than that.
No, you can't, but I know Simone, he's a competitive guy, and he really would like to get that first podium out of the way. He wants to get up there. He wants to taste that champagne. And here's a good battle heating up here. Neil Johnny very close, but as you said earlier, Jeremy, not much of his cause with Power to pass left, so it might be very difficult to get that last little jump on Oriole and take that position. But man, he is close, and Bruno close in tow as well.
Yeah, it shows having 3 seconds worth left, but when you press that button, the Cosworth Power to pass, the extra RPMs and horsepower remains in effect until you lift off the throttle. So in effect, he has about 8 or 9 seconds. Michelle Beisner.
That's what we're going to find out. Jimmy Vassar, owner of PKV, you've got to be pretty impressed with how Neil Johnny has been doing.
Yeah, we're really happy. He's made a lot of good passes. He's got a good dice going with Oriole right now. I think if he can get in front of him, he could probably catch up to Tracy, but he's only got 3 push to pass left, 3 seconds, and he's had to use some of that getting up to where he is, but I think he's had a great drive. It's unfortunate stalling there and falling to the back, but you know, it's been really exciting watching him.
Thanks, Michelle. With Jimmy Vassar there, the former champion, he stalled in the pit. Okay, that explains that one, James.
Sheds a bit of light on why he fell down from his 4th place, down right to the back in that first round of pit stops.
A little bit of rookie inexperience.
Quite possibly. I mean, there's several reasons why that could happen. You know, it could have been an issue with the turbo. We've seen a few times this year being at the start of a few races and leaving the grid leaving the pit stops a few times. Some tiny little issues, but yeah, ultimately it probably did come down to a little rookie mistake.
It's hard to say, but certainly he's got a fair amount of pit stops laps in the past. He's raced in Formula 3000 and also in A1GP alongside you, and pit stops certainly part of those series.
Yeah, they absolutely are. We had some good dices, actually, Neil and I, in A1. Hopefully, both of us were actually talking about it last week, 2 weeks ago in Toronto. Hopefully we both back be representing our countries in A1GP. But right now it is all Champ Car World Series. This is your leader, Sebastian Bourdais. His teammate Graham Rahal running third. Justin Wilson splits them. The Edmonton Master a little bit. Only Sebastian Bourdais, did he win the first race here? Who won the first race here? It was Sebastian Bourdais, so he has won at this track.
From 10th on the grid after all sorts of people fell off the road in front of him. AJ Allmendinger had the race in the bag until he crashed in the late stages. Then, as we talked about earlier on, Justin Wilson in the second.
Lap by half a second. No unnecessary risk.
No unnecessary risk, says Craig Hampson there on the radio to Sebastian Bourdais. And indeed, this car is super, super quick. Justin Wilson a couple of laps ago set his best lap of the race, but since then he's fallen back somewhat. His last lap was outside the 1 minute mark. So Sebastian Bourdais is pulling away with about 12 minutes to go. Sebastian Bourdais, the McDonald's car of Newman Haas Lanigan Racing, edging clear now. 59.046 last time around for Sebastian Bourdais. Easily quicker than anybody else. Graham Rahal, his Newman Haas Lanigan teammate, the only other guy below 1 minute. And there is Graham Rahal in the Medizone car, the blue and white machine. Closing in now on Justin Wilson. Justin comes this year as the lap times that have come across the line this time. 59.9 for Sebastian Bourdais, 59.7 actually for Justin Wilson, and Graham Rahal that time 60.2. So all three cars about a half a second between them. And that time around, it was this car, the CDW machine, a car number 9 of Justin Wilson, that was the quickest.
But it certainly does look like Graham Rahal has a car to maybe move up a little bit. And both these guys have quite a bit left of their Cosworth power to pass. Justin Wilson with 42 seconds, and Graham Rahal, having only used 4, has got 56 seconds left. So as we come up to the 10-minute remaining mark in this race, you could see people get a little bit trigger happy with the red button trying to make a move.
Yes, pretty much now whenever. You don't really want to say, you don't want to leave it till the last lap of the race. And look at that Graham Rahal, he's using every inch of the road, isn't he? Pushing hard here. But Justin Wilson, he's got a lot of experience in all sorts of different forms of racing. He's won championships in Formula Palmer at Audi. He's won the FIA Formula 3000 Championship. He's raced in Formula 1. Graham Rahal, well, he's done a lot of karting. He's raced in Formula BMW and in the Star Mazda Series. And of course, last year, he won the Atlantic Championship. He was second in the Atlantic Championship. And if he can get himself, he's already the youngest ever podium finisher in the Champ Car World Series. He wrested that honour away from Nelson Philippe. And if he can get a win to his name, he would of course become the youngest winner as well.
Also wrestling that away from Nelson Philippe. But I have to tell you, Jeremy, at this stage of the race, Justin Wilson knows that Graham is right behind him. Any mistake could cost him a position. These drivers are physically and mentally exhausted. As we've been saying the entire show, this track is just so physical. This heat really does in the body. It really, really stresses the mind as well.
These are two of the tallest drivers in the field, but there's also amongst the drivers who take their fitness most seriously. That's a great shot there. The car's going away through that turn 13-14 chicane. But this is our race leader. It is Sebastian Bourdais, the car number 1. We've seen it out in front oh so often. 3 championships in a row Sebastian Bourdais has won. And it's this man, Justin Wilson, the CDW car of the R Sport team.
Plus 1.5.
Plus 1.5. That would be the gap back to Graham Rahal, I presume. It doesn't look like a second and a half, but 4.5 seconds between first and second, and you could see the gap between second and third. And then this man, Simon Pagenaud, for Team Australia. As you talked about, James, he would match his best Champ Car finish if he were to finish where he is right now in 4th place. As you can see there, he started in 7th, and Simon Pagenaud last year, he came to this track and he came away with his first victory, in fact his only victory in the Atlantic Championship last year, en route to winning that $2 million prize.
Yeah, it was just a great drive all season from Simone. And you know, the Edmonton race is pretty far along in the Atlantic Championship, and I know that he was so disappointed to take that long to win a race, but he did get it done, and of course eventually went on to take the championship.
Some more battles going on here. The race only got just about 8 minutes to go now. It's 3 lead changes. The leader right now, the number 1 McDonald's car of Sebastian Bourdais. 2 full course cautions. We completed our pit stops for the day, and we've got 4 cars out of the race. Mario Dominguez first to go, then Catherine Legg, Will Power.
Oil, great job. 8 minutes remain.
Bourdais and Kera there putting this pressure still on Oriol Servia. This is the battle for 6th and 7th place. And I think it's Rick de Boer, who is in the Forsyth Championship Racing pit, trying to have a word with Phil Lepan, who looks after that car of Oriol Servia.
I must just say, Jeremy, I've just been so impressed with everybody on that blue squad right now. The boys in blue, Forsyth Championship Racing, you know, the teams made great calls, the crews have made great pit stops, and both their drivers have just done such a phenomenal job to come up from where they qualified.
Yeah, they haven't been quick this afternoon. Their respective fastest laps, only 11th and 12th fastest overall. Their best laps for Servia, a 1:04 for Tracy, a 1:05. But it's that consistency. They haven't made any mistakes. They've been pit stops have been typically excellent, as they always are at Forsyth Championship Racing, and the drivers are taking full advantage. There is PT running in 5th place, and having started as far back as he did in the field, he'll be a satisfied camper at the end of this day if he can keep it together now from just a little bit over 6 minutes remaining in our Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton.
Given all the trouble he's had since they unloaded this car on Friday, I've just been really impressed with how Paul's driven. You know, sometimes he can get flustered, but he's doing a great job. Rick de Boer in the pits.
Job is turn 9, 13 and 14. That's where we're losing time.
Well, indeed, we're here with Phil Lepan, the team manager. Let's talk about Oriol Servia. On Friday, he thought they were kind of lost in this team, and now you guys look great.
We've made some improvements during the course of the weekend and this morning during warm-up, so car's not as great as we'd like it, but it's definitely better.
Enough to keep him to the end, that's the question.
Yeah, we'll be good to the end.
Perfect.
Thanks, Rick. With Phil Lepan, the team manager, and PT.
5 minutes left, over 5 minutes. You're doing a great job. Just keep pushing.
Oriol Servia there bounding over the curbs. It's probably his race engineer Mark Hutchison perhaps on the radio there to Oriol Servia. And Mark is ex of Red Bull Formula 1 team in actual fact. But PT, meanwhile, has just set his best lap of the race so far, fractionally quicker than he had gone before. Not quite as quick as Oriol. And as I said, 12th on the overall ranking. It's actually about a 1.5 seconds slower than our race leader and pace setter Sebastian Bourdais, but still PT has done himself proud this afternoon. He's certainly been prone to mistakes and he's had a pretty dismal season, certainly by his standards. Could get that one win, slightly fortuitously perhaps, at Cleveland, a whole 2 years after his last victory, and PT will be, I think, pretty satisfied with his run this afternoon. He is slightly quicker again, 60.428 that time around, now within a hair's breadth of the best lap that his teammate Oriol Servia has done. And there's poor Bruno Junqueira in the Sonny's barbecue machine of Dale Coyne Racing, trapped behind these two in 7th place. There it is, Oriol Servia on the right-hand side of the screen, and then Bruno Junqueira right behind him, but just not able to make that pass.
And he's been back there for a while, Jeremy. He's seen a lot of the back of Oriol Servia's car, and that's got to be frustrating because, you know, as I've said, if you can be following a car this closely at this track here in Edmonton, then you've definitely got a quicker machine. And Oriol running a little bit wide at the apex through turn 10 there. And Bruno, you know, either way, even if he finishes 7th, that's a fantastic result for him. He's done a brilliant job all weekend long, but he's certainly going to feel like he could have gotten a little bit more out of this race.
We heard Dale Coyne much earlier in the show saying that he was, you know, pushing hard for a top 5 finish, and there's no doubt that he's got the pace, I think, to have a top 5 finish, but having the pace and then getting past people, two entirely different stories. Bruno Junqueira, in actual fact, has got the 4th fastest lap of the race. We've got the top 3 in the field, Bourdais, Wilson and Rahal. They're the only guys to get below 1 minute, and Bourdais is actually below 59 seconds as well, 58.935, a new race lap record for the champ cars here. And Bruno Junqueira, a 1 minute .055, 4th fastest overall. So irrespective of what happens, it's been an excellent performance by Dale Coyne Racing. So we look at how they stacked up this afternoon. Started, no, he didn't start 13th. Bruno Junqueira started in the 6th position in actual fact, and he's now running in 7th place. And quite sure what happened there, but anyhow, here is a sideways slide there for Sebastian Bourdais. It's not playing so, but look at that, he's just had a new fastest lap of the race.
You know, there is a point on deck for fastest lap of the race, and even though he has it by over 0.6 of a second, you even heard Craig Hampson come on the radio, said, you're half a second clear of the field, no need to push. You're never going to tell that to a racing driver if he's happy with his car, and he will push as much as he wants.
And he's been using the Cosworth power to pass in order now to try and get an even faster lap. You know, he's out in front, he just wants to cement that extra championship point. He knows a lot of points have slipped from his grasp this season so far, and he wants to make sure he gets that one extra bonus point this afternoon. He's here to underline his point.
He's on it again right now, and let's see what he comes across. A 58.653, just to let you know, the second fastest lap of the race. Justin Wilson at a 59.4. He is almost 0.9 of a second clear on fastest lap of the race.
That's only a hair slower than Bourdais managed yesterday in the final qualifying session. And look, he's on the black side for tyres. Supposedly the harder, slightly less quick tyre. And Bourdais yesterday in final qualifying did a 58.596. He was fourth fastest on that session, and now he's on a 58.653. So within hundredths of a second. But having said that, of course, Bourdais was complaining bitterly after the session, but he was held up on all of his quicker laps, so I think now he's just trying to make his point, isn't he?
He absolutely is, and he has made a point. He has stamped his authority at the front of this field, and as the clear leader of this championship. You know, I mean, this will vault him back into first place in the overall title, and he's just done such a fantastic job all weekend long.
He's on a different plane to everybody else right now. He's best lap more than a second quicker than anybody else. That's absolutely remarkable and really kind of unprecedented in a championship that is as competitive as this.
It absolutely is. I mean, you just don't see it. The Champ Car World Series, all the cars are the same, the tires are the same, the engines are the same. It all comes down to team and driver, and very seldom do you see somebody stand out quite like Sebastian Bourdais has. He just had an unprecedented, unrivaled record since he stormed onto the Champ Car scene just, was it 5 years ago now?
Yeah, just amazing. And on board here again with Justin Wilson. I don't know, how demoralizing must it be for Justin Wilson to see Bourdais disappearing at that rate or not?
It is really tough for a driver to accept, because Justin is driving as hard as he possibly can. He probably thinks there's no one who could possibly be driving that race car any quicker as Sebastian Bourdais comes around to lap Alex Figge again. That'll not hold him up too much, and given the fact he's got a 7-second gap as the white flag, well, I guess they don't use the white flag anymore. The one finger is waved, 1 lap to go here at the Rexall Grand Prix of Edmonton. It looks like Sebastian Bourdais will have this one in the bag.
Certainly, Alex Figge, he's done a nice job for the Pacific Coast Motorsports team as in the car number 29, but it's all about this man, isn't it? Sebastian Bourdais, no need to take any chances now. He's got a huge lead, you know, almost 6 seconds. It's come down a little bit, certainly over the last few laps, and Justin Wilson is now using his Cosworth power to pass, maybe trying to wrest away that fastest lap. And who knows, there's a bunch of guys using it farther down the field as well, and it's still that battle there for Bruno Junqueira trying to get past the 2 Forsyth Championship racing cars. It's Sebastian Bourdais settled in here behind Alex Figge. He'll be looking in his mirrors somewhat nervously, I'm sure, but I think it's still a pretty large gap back to Justin Wilson. And now just 2 corners to go for Sebastian Bourdais. Absolutely remarkable. This is his 67th start, and Sebastian Bourdais, there are the twin checkered flags. That is win number 27 for Sebastian Bourdais out of just 67 starts. An amazing win percentage. It's well over, it's just absolutely remarkable what he has achieved. Almost 40% of his races, he ends up in the victory lane. That's exactly what he's done again this afternoon. Wilson finishes third, Ray Hall in fourth, and here comes Simon Pagenaud for Team Australia, and he comes home with what would appear to be a 4th place finish and an excellent run by the Frenchman, or by both the Frenchmen. The Frenchman wins the race, that is Sebastian Bourdais, and his protege, Simon Pagenaud, whom Sebastian helped to get into the Champ Car Atlantic Championship last year, comes home with a 4th place finish. But it's Sebastian Bourdais. He this afternoon is number 1 here in Edmonton. So there is the The number 1 Frenchman, Sébastien Bourdais, and his countryman it was Simon Pagenaud, comes home with a 4th place finish. And Simon has been carrying a heart monitor for the last few races, and he came up with some very interesting facts that are presented to us by Dr. Jennifer Cummings, who works for the Cleveland Clinic and works on the fitness of many of the Champ Car drivers.
It's been an interesting run. What we're actually doing are we're hooking drivers up to a monitor to monitor their heart rhythm and heart rate during the race. And so what it allows it to do is transmit wirelessly to the pit crew, which allows our medical director, Dr. Pendersky, and myself to evaluate their heart rate and rhythm during the race. The race car driver uses that information to train. They look at their heart rate. These guys are extreme athletes with their heart rates hitting 190, 200 beats a minute for the entire race. And what I look at it is I'm trying to correlate or evaluate how the heart endures stress called G-forces, what the car endures when it goes around tight corners or accelerating very fast. What Dr. Pendersky looks at is when he evaluates them in a medical condition, if there's an accident or something to that effect, that he can evaluate the condition of the driver in a case of an emergency.
So fascinating stuff there, and thanks to Dr. Jennifer Cummings from the Cleveland Clinic, and she, along with the Champ Car Medical Director of Medical Services, Dr. Chris Pendersky, they look after the drivers. It was Dr. Pendersky, of course, who made that call yesterday to pull Tristan Gomendy out of the car number 22, and there is Justin Wilson. Hats off to him. He's the first man to congratulate Sébastien Bourdais, and he's a class act, is Justin Wilson. He knows he's been soundly beaten this afternoon, and it is Sébastien Bourdais who come away with, I reckon, 33 points out of the maximum 34 this weekend. He got 1 point for taking the provisional pole on Friday, 1 point for the fastest lap of the race, and 31 points for the win. Bill Stevens is getting ready to talk with our race winner, Sébastien Bourdais, and there is Graham
He is
Rahal.
still in the car, Rick Benjamin, and I'm very anxious to speak with him. I know that there's going to be an emotional win for him, because on the radio coming back, he was particularly pleased with the performance of his pit crew today and the strategy that they forged to get him this victory. Let me see if I can sneak in here. Sébastien, it was a great drive today, but I know you're particularly pleased with the performance of your pit crew and all the people on your team today.
Yeah, it's a great win. It's a great win. It's a great team effort. It was hard today. I mean, you know, with the bubble in the pits with Catherine and everything, it wasn't automatic, but the McDonald's team was awesome, and the car was great, so we got it.
A few anxious moments at the beginning of the race, but it looked as if once you got up to speed, nobody was going to catch you today. How was your car?
Yeah, the car was really good. Like I said, the balance was, you know, spot on, and that's what won us the race, plus this great pit stop, obviously.
Another impressive win for the 3-time champion.
Thank you, Bill Stevens. That was a 27th win, as I said, of Sébastien Bourdais' career. That ties him with Johnny Rutherford for 9th on the all-time list of Champ Car winners. Absolutely amazing effort by him. AJ Foyt, of course, well out in front with 67 wins. Michelle Beisner is standing by with Justin Wilson, our second-place finisher.
Justin Wilson, your second podium in 2 races and your second podium finish in Edmonton. Talk to me about it.
It was a long, tough race. You know, it seemed like Will had the pace early on, and we were struggling to keep up, but obviously wasn't saving as much fuel as myself, and Sébastien went a couple further, so it was just trying to push as hard as we could. I got past him just before the pit stop, or I got past for a second, so it was a fun race, but that's all we had, so I'm just pleased, you know, to get another podium here at Edmonton. It's great fun, and you know, it's also good for CDW and all our partners.
So Justin Wilson comes away with a second-place finish, and if you look at the point standings, he didn't start off the season too sharply, but he's moving up now. I think they'll still keep him in 4th place in the standings, but certainly edging closer to